Hey there, this is Kross.
And I'm Tim.
And welcome to Words and Whiskey, your intoxicating weekly book club podcast where we talk about books. But this week we're doing things a little bit different. We're going to be talking about Amazon's Fallout TV show. I'm super excited for this. It's actually kind of funny that we're doing this because every time that you've been on like the regular show, you've always brought a drink inspired by Fallout. So it's kind of cool to be able to like kind of talk about Fallout because, you know, we have a huge connection to Fallout, you especially. But like growing up, this is a huge deal for us. So I'm so excited to get to talk about the show and everything like that.
Yeah, very, very much so. Thanks for having me in PJ's stead. Yeah. He will return for all of those who, yes, are waiting and wondering why his voice is not here and mine is. Also, every time I've been here, we talk for too much time and we talk for too long. We're going to try to keep a nice tight hour, hopefully, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But yes,
we'll
so
see.
I'm here.
We'll see. Internally, I'm saying an hour and a half. Like that's where I'm imagining our tight hour is. But yeah.
One thing that I want to talk about too, I noticed I listened to one of the previous episodes, which I had already heard before because of the Patreon feed. You know, it was originally the feed, then it went public feed. I listened to it because, hey, I was on a drive. One thing that's a pitch that I'll give this episode for you, because, you know, whatever. We did an episode once where we had Adam, mutual friend, on, and PJ and Crossland, and we talked about, I think it was an extra life benefit of Adam's, and so, or level target, whatever they call those. And so we talked about our favorite games. Fallout New Vegas is my favorite game. So I am definitely going to have things to say about Fallout New Vegas on this episode and things to talk about on the Fallout show. I think, like, before we get into drinks, I'm just on that now. So I want to say that, like, I have noticed a lot of dialogue and discourse. It has actually kind of like shallowed and mellowed out a bit. But initially when this show came out, there was a lot of like original Fallout fans, like 1-2 New Vegas, the West Coast Fallout fans versus the like 3-4 76 Bethesda era
East
fans.
Coast. Yeah.
Yeah. There has been like a lot of conflict. And just to hit at the very beginning, I'm very much a West Coast Fallout 1-2 New Vegas fan. And I am probably going to be like very particular and probably opinionated about how Bethesda treats Fallout, but I want like everyone to know I'm not like one of those people that like wants to fight over the different Fallouts. I have almost as many hours in Fallout 4 as I do New Vegas. I am certainly a Fallout New Vegas fan over the rest of the canon, but like the important thing here is that like this show, I love this show. I really enjoyed the show. It was a great show. I'm not one of those people that are like, because of these things that I don't like that they did, I want to flip the table and I'm out. I loved it. I feel like I am not coping and seething like season 1 Halo fans were. I enjoyed this.
Yeah. Great comparison. Yeah, great comparison. Yeah, I definitely understand that. And I similarly agree. I am, you know, if I were to rank my appreciation of games, I am definitely also a Fallout New Vegas first. And then I'm gonna throw in the weird one where I love Far Harbor from Fallout 4. It's my favorite of anything that Bethesda put out. Fallout 3 is great. The DLCs are generally better than the main story was by and large in the Bethesda games, which is crazy to say. But yeah, I absolutely adored Fallout. My first experience with Fallout comparatively, and maybe we start there and then we'll talk about drinks in the show, was with Fallout 3 originally. So I didn't play Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 until much later. I think it was like 20 or 21 when I played Fallout 1 for the first time, upon your recommendation and post like me really loving like New Vegas when we were in high school. So
yeah, okay, right on. And my first exposure, so I think I have said this before on the podcast, but it might be locked into that Patreon game commentary.
I think it is.
My uncle used to give me all his old games. He gave me the original Doom. He gave me Fallout 2.
Warcraft.
Not Fallout 1. He gave me Fallout 2. I played Fallout 2 as a kid, completely forgot about it. At some point I played Fallout 1, I think like trying to replay Fallout 2. And then I played Fallout 3 as that came out. And what's wild is like, I really liked Fallout 2. Fallout 1 is very buggy. The story is amazing. It's so good and has some canon ramifications from this show, but whatever. We're going to skirt by that.
Which is cool.
And then Fallout 3, well, they're not cool. They're actually bad.
Well, it's interesting to talk about.
But anyways. And then Fallout New Vegas, which actually originally didn't like Fallout New Vegas as much as Fallout 3, but like critically and like as it has played out, I think it's because Bethesda nails atmosphere. And so like if you're there on the first blush, it's kind of like Fallout 3 is like it's Fallout 2 but in first person, which I love, and that has like that initial hit. And then New Vegas comes out quickly after. It doesn't feel like it was very buggy on console back in the day.
Very buggy.
But playing it on PC, you know, New Vegas is king for me. And yeah, the rest are good. But that's my exposure. That's my roadmap into there. That's pretty much it. Have you played Fallout 1 and 2?
Only 2, not 1. And I'm actually as a part of this, I'm considering going back to 1. I've read it all, of course, via wikis and everything else. And like, I've caught the story from a number of ways. And, you know, we've had long conversations about Fallout 1 prior, including like, you know, the crazy experiences where you could just head straight west from like the spawn, right? And like run into a super mutant and like all those things. Like I know so much about Fallout 1, but I've never played Fallout 1. Strangely, I don't know if you have, but I played Brotherhood Tactics.
Yes, I have played that too. I didn't even mention those. Yeah, right.
That was technically my first experience with the series, which is crazy to think about. But like, I didn't even think about it as a Fallout game, and it comparatively without like any of the other canon, it was a fun game. I love tactics games.
Pretty good.
I was a fan of that. But like, after like learning even a hint of lore and everything else, it was like, what the fuck is this abomination? So, which is very different than a lot of things.
Major jump into something that is theorized by fans that like goes way deep in. By the way, spoilers to Fallout 1 through TV show. So literally everything.
It's a game that like doesn't have that many crazy spoilers. So like that's the other side of it. Outside of Fallout 1 and 2, I guess, but the show kind of spoils most of that.
Right. But Fallout Tactics thing, remember how like maybe do, maybe don't. There's like the vault, the central command of the vault is kind of like how NORAD out of like Nebraska is or whatever. Or Colorado, but I'm thinking of Offutt Air Force Base out of Nebraska. Right. But the same thing, the Vault Tech central command is in like the center of the US, and that's like a part of the Fallout Tactics story.
So I kind of thought about that too.
There are people
with the like weird
that have looked into Easter eggs from the show. I can't speak to them with enough quality to describe them, but people are theorizing that they're actually pulling Fallout 3 or Fallout Tactics back in, or like folding it into the show, which would be very interesting. Yeah, like I don't know much to say, but it's cool. Yeah.
This gets into the show a little bit more than I think that we we absolutely want to hop in and talk about this shit already very clearly.
Yes.
So let's talk about our drinks first, and then I kind of want to like spin up on this thought. Let's kick it to the drinks, that way we can get really excited and talk about the show. So what are you having tonight, Tim?
Okay, so as the first time I was ever on the Dune first episode, it took me a while to get there because I had to bake an apple. I made a Fallout themed drink. For fans that are in our Discord, they will know my latest obsession has been the thing I rallied against the most in the Dune Part 1 episode, which was Star Wars. I'm telling you, folks,
okay,
if you've never had blue milk, you are missing out. So this has been a whole plot line.
I didn't think
very
this was
inside joke.
Yes,
I have been living up the blue milk. If you don't know, it's a thing they had a promotion for May the 4th. It's blue. It's just fucking blue milk, but it has vanilla flavor added to it. So it has a little bit more sugar than milk in America already has, which is a whole nother topic. It's rather simple. I really think it is peak in a hot chocolate. So I just have a hot chocolate with Bailey's. We're recording this at 10 p.m. I'm about to go to sleep after we're done, hopefully. I wanted a little hot chalky.
One would hope.
I originally was going to make a blue milk grasshopper, but here we are. So this is what we're doing instead.
Hey, good compromise.
Before we leave my drink thing, the one thing I'll say, blue milk is peak. It is epic. It is great. Love it. Don't make eggs with it. Those are gross. That's all.
Wait. Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess some people, like, obviously you can throw cream in to like I assume you're making like scrambled eggs.
Yeah, scrambled eggs.
Omelet, maybe.
With the little eggs. Milk.
Oh, yeah.
But the vanilla, the blue.
Yeah, the sweetness, I think, would just.
Not it, fam. Just. But yeah, I'm here with my blue milk hot chalky, and it's great.
Cool. That's tasty. Jealous for sure. Unfortunately, you're drinking it out of a nice ceramic cup, so I can't see the glorious blue milk, but like, yeah. Totally. It's such a good move and fun that you did that. I'm having what I'm calling a nuclear lemonade, which was kind of it was a cocktail idea that I had after, like, you've done a couple of cocktails from Greg from How to Drink, specifically relating to Fallout things, and he was recreating beverages. You've recreated them to great extent. I was just kind of like imagining like a post-apocalyptic version of a cocktail. The ghoul drinks a lot, and so I just kind of wanted to like, what would be like the nuclear lemonade, like a Nuka-Cola lemonade that's been set out, right? So what this is it is an ounce of absinthe, an ounce of water, a 3/4 ounce of lemon juice, and a 1/2 ounce of maraschino liqueur, just to give like a full, nice, well-rounded sort of presentation. It drinks so close to lemonade. It is so tasty. In case you are unaware, absinthe and water react and create almost like a sugar-like flavor, so you don't need a whole lot of sweetness. Maraschino actually is a sweetening liqueur, so it works great. Tastes lovely. It tastes like a glass of lemonade with like a little bit of a black licorice finish, which, plays up the nuclear element.
What is, when you say maraschino, is that like the cherry? Maraschino cherry?
So it's from the same region of Italy, I believe, but it is a liqueur. So it is not the cherry thing. Okay. But it is a liqueur.
All right. Yeah. Interesting.
It is most similar, like it is reminiscent of Saint Germain, although I would never sub the two for each other, but it's in that same category.
Obviously, I'm here to represent the part of the audience that doesn't understand drinks, because I just took milk, Swiss Miss, and a splash of Baileys and called it a thing. So, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I was, we've gotten more complex with the cocktails over the course of the show, and like, I don't know. That's part of the reason on episode 200 that I came in hot with an old classic of a Baja Blast with tequila.
That was wild.
Which is
yes,
hysterical. So that was a fun one. Okay, cool. So I would love to just start off. We've already been talking about Fallout a little bit, but for people who don't know, Amazon's provided summary for the show, in case you're unaware, is in a future post-apocalyptic Los Angeles brought about by a nuclear decimation, citizens must live in underground bunkers to protect themselves from radiation, mutants, and bandits. And that's sort of their like high-level, limited character summary. Gets the idea across and kind of kicks us off into the show. So where do you want to start?
I guess like the simple answer is just like, what did you think of the show? We did hit on that at the very beginning, but like, how did you feel about the show? Go over anything that, sparks your mind, like what made you vibe the show or not.
I loved it. I outright loved the show from like the first 10 minutes of the episode, the show. It blew away my expectations. You and I personally, and some of our friends, are adherents to pretty strict, like, no hype. And we tried not to watch trailers. We tried not to see advertisements, everything like that. And I remember this being one of the few things in which you were like, I don't know. And you like looked at a couple things and reshared some things, which is rare. And you're like, this kind of looks like trash in the beginning when some of the images came out. And I was like, I don't know, man. I trust the showrunners. They've done good jobs with a couple of things in the past. And I was like, I think I have a little bit more faith. That said, I was like, it could just be a fun romp that felt like Fallout. This was way more than what I expected, which was just that fun romp that felt reminiscent of Fallout. This was as near pitch perfect of a show as I could ever want in the universe of Fallout.
Yeah, I think I do actually remember one of those pictures that I talked about, and it was specifically, and I think this is like episode 6 or whatever, the ghouls. Yeah, it's the super duper mart.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I'm a lot more cognizant of now, because it was also not a promotional photo, it was actually pre-production photo from a set. I think now I'm much more cognizant of like how much a editing, post-production, and just like even a simple like filter can improve something, because like you see what that looked like on screen versus what it looked like in pre-production set photos. It looks way different. It's kind of like when you see like photos of Game of Thrones and like Emilia Clarke is like on the buck dragon. It's like, oh, that doesn't look like a dragon. That's like basically what I was
saddle.
Right. Yeah. That's basically what I was doing, which is stupid. Yeah, the show.
Totally fair, though. Like, and being so grounded, like, they're like, we're doing practical effects. You're staring at that, and I'm like, well, it looks practical. It looks like trash.
Yeah, right.
and that was, it's realistic.
Yeah. The show, though, oh my God, really good. I think the moment Lucy, she gives over her, like, traits that she's, like, born with or whatever, which I thought was really cool.
God,
and it's like
special stuff.
All those cool game mechanics. But I think the moment that, like, I was really in on the game or on the show was seeing like all the little touches they had that like played homage. And I think this is actually episode 2, so I was much more in before then. But when Maximus kills the Yao Guai And Yao Guai is a Bethesda creation, I believe. I don't think that's actually like West Coast Fallout creature.
I think you're right.
But he pulls out his 9mm handgun, and it's literally a Fallout 1 9mm handgun. And like, this is such a weird thing to lens on, but I, unlike Lucy, was, you know, my trait that I selected at birth was the gun nut perk. And like, just to see like that level of attention to detail, clearly somebody in the art department, like, for example, I think the main character, Lucy, actress, she played Fallout 4 to learn the game. And
Ella Purnell. Yep.
Right. And when
New Vegas. 4 and New Vegas. Those were the two.
Oh, she did play New Vegas.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
That's cool.
She said she got about 4 hours in. She didn't have enough time.
Okay,
before,
right. But she did complete
everything.
Fallout 4.
Yeah.
And so when I hear that, I'm a little bit like, initially, and I didn't know the 4 hours of New Vegas, and I think my point still kind of stands with that. People are going to play the most approachable game. They're not going to play 1 and 2, which is the only games, and Tactics, which is where that gun comes out. But it shows that somebody like cared enough to like be like, hey, here is another like brand of gun in this universe that occurs on the West Coast. Let's put it in the show. That was like, when I saw those things, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so in. And then seeing the Vault Dwellers, seeing their naivety is just really cool. So I love the show. We're talking about like, the first 2 episodes. Yeah. It's just, it's very unique. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say the lens of seeing the Vault Dwellers from the outside is one of the coolest parts of the show, because generally most of the games outside of New Vegas, you're playing a Vault Dweller that has exited the vault in some fashion from the outset, at the very least from the first person story perspectives, I should say, when you're inhabiting those characters outside of New Vegas. And so it was incredible to see the vault from the outside kind of for the first time. And that POV, as opposed to you being the naive person stepping into the world, was like, you kind of get to like laugh at it and poke fun at it.
Right.
And that is why like the comedy lands so perfectly among the horror and like the grotesquerie of it all. They nailed tone. Right. In a way that like the Fallout has a specific tone. They not only nailed the Fallout tone, but they like brought it together with cinema's language. And that was great.
Well, and that's like, too, I don't think they ever rolled like a Game of Thrones style intro sequence. It was always kind of like Fallout radio station music playing, have a little stinger, do something cool, and like that you'd see with the Wild Wasteland perk on or something like that. Like I think in love like the drug dealer who later is actually a more important character, or the whatever fake thing he is.
The guy, the like chicken fucker. Yeah.
I completely forgot.
He's
about
literally
that.
the chicken fucker.
He is the chicken fucker. Okay, I thought it was just something else going on.
No.
Forgot that part.
The dude's chickens, and she saved him because she's the morally good person, but it was the wrong call, and that's like that is proof positive that the show knew what it was doing, which is so cool.
Yeah. So like just to see all that, like all those little touches and elements. And that's where like when you play the original games, like there are like literally like TARDISes and like really goofy Monty Python sketches that occur in Fallout New Vegas if you're running the Wild Wasteland perk. The games are inherently full of comedy, but then also like in the case of New Vegas, we're literally having a guy who is enslaving people and like has roving bands of people like raping and murdering the countryside of Arizona and New Mexico and Colorado. And like, that's some heavy shit, but it's still like funny and serious at the same time. And the show did both of those things really, really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It somehow blended that perfectly, which I genuinely, I'm trying to like sift through my brain, think about a show that's like nailed tone quite as well. Like picking up something like that and running with it from an adaptation perspective. And
I don't want to talk about this now, but Westworld season 1 nails its tone so well.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. You're not wrong. So this is maybe more of a hopeful topic than it is I mean, like The Last of Us is the natural comparison that a lot of people draw.
Sure.
However, what I want to do instead is I want to point to what I hope happens with Borderlands, and I assume will happen with Borderlands because of the creatives involved. So I imagine that this take won't age poorly, but with the people that are involved in that, and we'll see. This is kind of fun, but I imagine that we will feel similarly about that because it is a similar like level of humor and like action and gore to blend together, and I'm curious to see how it plays out. But I believe in Craig Mazin, even though he has inadvertently disowned the project, which is interesting. But
so this is Chernobyl Man, right?
Well, yeah, Chernobyl and The Last of Us, and the only reason that it is under a pseudonym is because Eli Roth rewrote so much of the script unprompted that he was legally allowed to change it to a pseudonym. So they collectively are known as Joe Crombie, working on the script together, which is interesting. You can track all this through Script Notes, the podcast, if you wanted to know more. But I've been following it religiously, which is interesting. So
cool. What did you think of our?
Craig's like, I never wrote on that. Anyway, I fucking loved The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. This is such a good movie. It was longer than the 3-hour cut of the movie that I remembered. Because I thought that like it was only, and where was Clint Eastwood in all of this? I thought that he was a part of it. Anyway, sorry, joke didn't land immediately.
I've never seen it, so I don't know. Yeah.
I recently watched it for the first time, like maybe within the last year. Incredible movie. Highly recommend you watch it. Obviously, it's an archetype for a reason, and it makes sense. But this is very much playing into kind of the same sort of character traits where you assume that one person is the worst, one person is good, and they all shift as you kind of begin to understand perspectives. I loved all of the point of views. So the ghoul immediately comes off as this, especially we see him so we love him. We think that he's good. We kind of get an understanding, and then like his backstory builds and it plays off in critical ways. And then we get into him and it was like, whoa, you're real nasty, dude. Like I can't abide by some of the calls. But at the same time, you're like, I kind of get it. Maximus, meanwhile, is seemingly like doing good for himself and like trying to do good, but then is just getting worse and worse and just making the decisions that do the best for himself and ends up becoming the ugly of the group. And meanwhile, Ella Purnell narrowly balances that edge between good and bad with everything that she has going on. So I love each of the characters. It did take me a little bit longer to love Maximus. I think it wasn't until like episode 6 or 7 where it was
in the vault
that he wasn't the one that injured. The vault was great. I loved the vault. That was so funny. I loved that shit.
What does he say?
It was
speech check
good.
Failed. Do you want to see my penis explode?
Do you want to see my penis explode? Yeah. Jesus Christ. There's so many moments like that where it's like clearly they're writing this as though they're dice rolls and like characters and whatever else. And I was like, perfect bit. But in particular, the thing that I loved the most about Maximus's whole storyline was that it appeared as though he was intentionally trying to steal this role, as though he was being very advantageous and like a snake. In reality, he failed upwards, accidentally being in the right place at the right time. He did not cut the woman's ankle, their ankle. I'm not 100% certain, but that person's ankle that was meant to be Titus's squire. And
I think they admit it was them that did it.
They do.
Yeah.
But just uncertain.
But you didn't know. Yeah, right. Always you were questioning.
You don't know that until so much later. Yeah. And so like I was like, this guy is nasty, and he still is even after the fact, which makes it worse somehow. It's like, you weren't as bad as I thought you were at the beginning, but you actually developed worse in the end, which is like it's a clever writing trick. And I shouldn't be surprised because reminder that Jonathan Nolan wrote one of my top 5 movies of all time. So, I mean, I'm not shocked. In Memento.
Okay.
So, yeah. How about you? Characters, how'd you feel?
Okay, so I have a different tact that I would apply here because I also did not know the good, bad, ugly. I think I know that.
Totally fair.
I don't actually.
That's like a general genre trope.
What is
right?
the ugly? Just like, does that mean like the fuck up or like the?
No, the worst. Like
he's good, bad, and ugly. Okay, that's literally the tiering.
The good, bad, and the ugly.
Sure.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So my lens that I had on them, and it's constantly in this like this is a game but a show adaptation thing,
which is so cool. To me, you can also do that.
To me, each one represented a playthrough. So when you play Fallout 3, we'll use as the example, you are the vault dweller. You are literally from the vault. You probably like stood up for Amada against the tunnel snakes. Tunnel snakes rule, by the way. And like, you're the goody two shoes. You go into Megaton and they're like, we have this nuclear bomb. We need to disarm it. And you're like, I'll help you. But then like,
I'll do that.
But then like playthrough 2, actually, let's skip.
You're like Tenpenny.
Playthrough 2, you're like the ghoul. You're like, I just want to watch the world fucking burn. Like I've got stuff to do.
A reminder from our childhood. You showed me the nuclear explosion because I didn't realize you could do that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I was at your place and I was playing. You were playing through. You're like, hey, did you check this out? Did you know that you could do this? And I went, what? And you're like, check this out. And you went to the 10 penny apartments and blew it up. And I went,
that's awesome.
Whoa. And that's also, I think that's when we also culturally exchanged BioShock for Fallout. Because I think that's when I wanted to play Fallout and you got BioShock. So,
nice. That's cool. Yeah. And it's funny because my big moment there is the BioShock one, and then yours in a way is like this one.
Yeah. It's exactly right. It's the vice versa exchange. Anyway.
And then my view on the ugly Maximus, I also did not like him. I was like, God, this guy kind of sucks. But
love his story, hate him.
But actually, I do love him because he's the most Fallout player that I am, which is when he lets Knight Titus die. You can tell the entire reason why he's doing this is because that dude just wants the power armor. Like,
he just sees the loot.
Right.
He sees the loot. Yeah.
You just want it, like, in all these games, like Fallout 1, it's like, if you want to get power armor, the only way you get it through Brotherhood of Steel. I don't remember how it works in Fallout 2. Fallout 3, it's the same way. You got to like join the Brotherhood or do the Anchorage DLC or whatever. If you want to do that, you got to join the faction. And like, it's played out throughout the show that like, his hero figures that he saw in the fall of Shady Sands in that like post-nuclear attack is the power armor guys. And so he just saw them. Like, you see the roving.
He's just looking for his big brother. Yeah.
Right. So I turned out to end up liking him a lot. I think Ella Purnell, Lucy, is still my favorite character. She plays the role exceptionally well. Her character gets
incredibly
doe-eyed.
Naive.
I don't know what you'd say. Yeah. And she becomes like a lot cooler. Like, it's also cool game thing when she switches like her vault suit into the like armored vault suit, which is like kind of like canonically like
she wears some Raider armor.
Yeah. It's really cool. So yeah, the characters are great. Also too, one thing on the ghoul, I actually was like okay with him being a murderous asshole or whatever, because it's like, this dude's lived for 250 years. Everyone you cared about probably dead. Well, spoiler, they're not. Well, we don't
shockingly
know. Right, but you're gonna start killing people, you know, like a lot of ghouls in the show or in the games. Like, typically, like, there's a ghoul that's a medic in Fallout New Vegas, and she's like, oh, this is like my fourth career. Like, I was a bounty hunter before. I did that. Like, if you're a ghoul, you kind of like have it made, but also your life kind of sucks. But you know, whatever.
Yeah. I love the addition of the drug that keeps them alive, right? Like, we've always kind of like had an idea that there's like some level of like radiation balance and like chemical balance that keeps them up, but like, it's never been codified. And I loved this sort of like pressure that put on the ghoul, Walton Goggins' character, to like stay alive. I really liked that layer. I want to mention, just from the good, bad, ugly perspective and the playthrough perspective, I kind of play like a murder gremlin when I play through Fallout games. I play like the ghoul, but then I always choose the good ending. And so like, that is so me, where it's like I'm murdering for loot, I'm doing the other thing, and I'm like upsetting, and I'm sitting on the couch and I'm chilling out, like, you know, after. That is so quintessentially the way that I play through the game. And then the sort of like at the last moment being like, well, the reason that I'm doing this is for altruistic things, and I want my family to do okay, and like, I totally am the bad to good guy. Often.
I think
generally the way that I play.
I think I'm shaded Maximus and Lucy somehow. So yeah, that's what I am, I guess, because I don't
fair.
I don't like the arbitrary killing unless it's the Legion or on a Legion playthrough, the NCR.
Well,
right?
yeah, generally they're bad people, but a lot of people in the Wasteland are like in the middle, and I'm like, I'm just going to shoot you, buddy.
Yeah.
Or if I can't talk you out of it, I'm going to shoot you. Yeah. Which is sort of his style.
Anyways, we're talking a lot about Fallout New Vegas, so back to the show. Right?
Oh man, so good. Yeah. We were talking about characters in relation to things.
I know. I'm saying that, so I vocalized me not talking about New Vegas, because as far as I'm concerned, this is the Fallout New Vegas episode of Words and Whiskey. But
it kind of. Well, I very much think that season 2 is going to be New Vegas, the show, or like New Vegas related directly. We'll talk about that at the end.
Yeah.
I'm pretty positive. I think a lot of people are way more lukewarm. We should just look at the way that they handled the show, and I'm nervous. I feel good about it. That's fair. But we'll get to it. I would love to talk about the showrunners for a moment, the production and kind of the back end of these things. So season 1, directed by and executive produced, which means executive producers in a show standpoint, showrunners are also writers. They're involved in direction occasionally and otherwise. But Lisa Joy and Jonathan Nolan being the brother of Christopher Nolan, involved in a number of his films, wrote Interstellar, Memento, The Dark Knight Rises, Dark Knight, and Westworld and Peripheral. I think that's mostly the things that he'd been a part of. And similarly, Lisa Joy, his wife, of whom he met at, I think, the Memento premiere, which is so cool and crazy that their lives blended together. Also an incredible writer, wrote and directed on most of those TV shows and everything else, and has been very involved. Also wrote and directed Reminiscence, which is one of my top 50 favorite films. It's my favorite detective film of all time. I love it. It's so good. I know that it was like mediocrely panned, and I fucking hate people of whom can't understand a good story.
Is this the thing you made me listen to or watch like the trailer of, and then I shut it off?
Yeah, because you're like, I like this idea. You shut it off within 5 seconds because you're like, I love this idea.
Right.
And I watched it with Tim Pearson, one of our friends, and he really liked it. He'd probably give it like an 8 out of 10,
sure.
Which, super acceptable. But yeah.
I don't think I saw it.
They did great work. They've done great work. I know that you haven't seen the last season of Westworld, but...
Wait, which last season? Didn't they do a new last season?
The fourth season of Westworld.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen
They're supposedly shopping out the very end of Westworld right now as a like mini series, like a couple episode mini series or a movie, which sounds like it'll happen soon. But
yeah,
needless to say, you quit after season 3.
Yeah, I did.
Which is reasonable.
That's where, and we'll talk about this later, but that's where I do get nervous. Like, I don't, just to be very clear too, like Westworld season 1 is probably like one of my favorite things of TV. And honestly, like in retrospect, every time I've seen it, I kind of treat it like an anthology or like a, 10 episode or 8 episode. I don't remember how many it is, like fixed
10
thing. Yeah. And that's because I really didn't like where they took it after season 1. I've seen season 2. I've definitely seen season 3 because that's with the like all-knowing AI.
Season 3 was the one that you checked out of.
Yeah.
Season 2, we both agreed when we were watching it that it was like, this is very good, but they were doing way too much mystery box storytelling, and this is where I'll say Fallout is not that. They're not attempting that style of storytelling, which is where I feel more positively about where it's heading.
Sure, but on that, and to our showrunners, and to like, do I give them credit, or like how, or do I think they have the technical prowess to be able to execute on this show? Like, absolutely, because when I watched Westworld, I cut it on the 3rd episode, binged the 3rd episode. That was a weekly release, not all at once. But I watched those 3 episodes.
I have to talk about the weekly release.
Okay.
The thing that they did with Fallout in a moment here. But yeah. Continue.
But when I watched that, it was like very evident to me that they were basically trying to make like Red Dead Redemption the show. Because like you are in like Westworld, it's like an IRL like playground where it's a game. You go to the hub world, you go to the town, whatever it's called, like Sweetwater, you get a quest, you go do the quest, you return from the quest, there's higher level quests. Like, these are the right people to be doing a game adaptation, and I think they did it really well. Like, for example, when people are taking drugs or they're doing something, it's like, it's a game mechanic. They're not going to explain it because they know that like the audience is smart enough to understand that like a giant needle thing going in your arm is going to make you feel better. It's not like we need a tourniquet and then you're going to spend the rest of the season hurt. This is a game, and they like know how to write to that. And I think it's because in Westworld, they required like the writers to play Grand Theft Auto games, and Red Dead Redemption is something I read many years ago, at least like get a background understanding of it. And so it's very clear that these people like had played the game, or at least like understand like the mechanics of an RPG like Fallout. So yeah, I think they did a good job. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm very nervous though, but maybe they'll do fine. All right.
Yeah. I'm less nervous. I feel affirmed in part because I don't think you watched it, but there was a season of a TV that came out on Amazon of a show that Lisa Joy and Jonathan Nolan were involved in called Peripheral. Peripheral was incredible. It was everything that I wanted from Westworld's subsequent seasons and more. But the problem was that it never caught on. It was William Gibson adaptation, which is, Neuromancer, the original like kind of cyberpunk novel that popularized everything, that author, and it just didn't hit it wasn't marketed well. That's the only excuse that I can really give it. It was incredible otherwise, which is just so unfortunate.
Well, now they have all the equipment they need to succeed, because this has been received very well.
Right. So by comparison with what I experienced from their, like, what I would call like a growing up from like Westworld, and the way that they were doing that and the way that was show running, to Peripheral, to this, I just see this trajectory that feels like they've figured out how to do TV storytelling significantly better, because Jonathan Nolan's movie record and Lisa Joy's movie record is nuts.
So to bring you back, they know how to do television. They know how to do television writing. What are your thoughts on the television being released, or like the episodes being released on the weekly or all at once? And what is that? What is that can of worms? Open it. Or the can of Mutafruit.
So mad.
Oh,
I was so mad. I was so mad that it was all out at once. And call it as you will, but I watched the first 20 minutes of the first episode, and I went, this is one of the best experiences I've had in TV of late by a long shot. The closest that I can think of, I mean, Shogun aired at the same time and was doing weekly releases, right? And this is why this is such a shitty thing. Shogun has maintained a higher communication online because there's a weekly release, and there's weekly talk, and there's new memes about Anjin's translation, and it's incredible, and it's so funny, and it's great. It's such a good show, but it keeps you engaged throughout. And Fallout dropped and had like 3 weeks of solid buzz, and has continued to like have good referral afterwards. But I can only imagine what it would have been if they would have done 2 or 3 episodes up front. Like, I think that like binging an intro, or like giving a binge intro, is a good thing for some of these shows to like get people hooked in, but then do the weekly drip. And we would have had such, especially with the way that the show was produced and written, there would have been so much online dialogue and discourse. There would have been questions about Shady Sands. People would have been freaking out online about all kinds of theories. People would have been talking shit about this from like Fallout fans' perspectives. They would have been like, this is garbage. And then it would have been like, you just didn't get far enough.
Sure.
And then it like remedies the fact, and it would have like done a lot of like help against harm, but it would have created dialogue. And that's what is so disappointing with this versus, I don't know, a number of other TV shows. I feel very similarly about Three Body Problem, which did the same thing on Netflix like a week prior, of which I also loved. But I intentionally, with both of these shows, separated and watched the episodes in doses, because I think that also there's some enjoyment in like giving yourself that sense of mystery and intrigue of what's going to come next. I watched the first episode while cat sitting at Bingham's place, and then didn't watch the second episode until a week later. And that just, it built something in me as far as anticipation goes and like what I wanted. So I was pissed.
I think there is
from like a cultural perspective.
There's an pretty intense like fight for eyeballs, and I think like there's so much media now. Like, I haven't even seen Shogun. I have no idea when I will. I probably will, but also I have to see Andor. I have to see
You'll
like
love
this,
it.
that.
You'll
I
love
have to see so much stuff that like it's
totally
so
fair.
much to take in. For this season, am glad that it was all at once, because I had to cancel a vacation due to a medical issue. And I didn't actually even know the show was out. People started talking about Fallout in my circles, and I think it might have been one of our group chats or somewhere else. I was like, what the hell are people like? Why are people talking about Fallout all of a sudden? Like, oh, that show that I shared the crappy screenshots from the set of like 2 years ago is out. Okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to like suffer through my headaches and watch this show end to end. But I would not have preferred to do that in any other circumstance. It was a great coping mechanism for the fact that I had to cancel a really fun vacation that I'd been planning for like over a year. But yeah, there's a lot missing from even like every show I watch. I immediately, like after finishing it, will type in like show Reddit on Google, and then get brought to the episode discussion, and I read it. And then next week I do the same thing.
Or Vulture's discussion. Vulture always has like a pretty good article.
Right. And you don't get much of that with this show, and I hope you would. Right. I would say that one counterpoint to the weekly thing, but this is on the end user to solve this problem, is like Westworld. If you would have read, I did not. If you would have read the Westworld season 1 episode discussions, you would have found out on episode 3 that spoiler to that show, Logan is the man in black. Just because people figured it out on like episode 3.
Yeah, they solved. Yeah, right.
And if you,
which was a part of the problem.
So it's like you got to be selective in how you consume it. But weekly is better. It's much more like exciting, or like it's an event. It's
enticing,
not, right?
Yeah.
So I agree.
Yeah.
Please do that for season 2, folks.
Yeah. If anyone in charge is by any means listening to this, which I doubt. Yeah, of course, intensely. But if you are, just advocate. I'm sure you did, actually. I would be genuinely shocked if it wasn't. This was probably a higher ups call. I would doubt that this was anyone producing the show.
You know what's weird too? On that, Fallout is owned by Bethesda, which is owned by Microsoft, who Microsoft actually owns, or Microsoft owns Xbox, who owns Bethesda, but also they own 343, who owns Halo, but also Microsoft, the parent, owns, what is it, the Peacock or something? What is Halo on? Kind of weird that it's
Paramount.
on like a different platform. Yeah, Paramount. Yeah, it's kind of weird, but
yeah,
I don't know if there's anything there. But
they bought the rights. The way the rights works in Hollywood is kind of wild, so it's a little bit different. But to that point, yeah, I mean, it is a little strange that they're on completely disparate services, and one of the things, this is more like a general adaptation thing, and we can maybe talk about that for a moment here, but one of the general adaptation things that I intensely dislike is that people equate the services that they're adapted on to the quality or to the people that are in charge.
Oh, sure.
And that is just not the way that anything goes. This feels like an HBO show, but it isn't on HBO. Why is that? It's because the showrunners, the production, the directors, everyone that's associated with it, make it to a quality that is of whatever it is. But we often equate quality with whatever production house is putting the money behind it. That has nothing to do with the way that the end product comes out. And it's one of those things that just drives me mad on the side of things where it's like, Netflix is Netflix is not going to renew things past season 2, which is a different problem. But as though every HBO production is going to be perfect. No, there are producers, there are executives, there are people that are involved that care about the way that things are done. And so they shepherd things in a certain direction. And some of that is done at the high level, but that's not generally the way that most of these film productions go. They're about the showrunners like Jonathan Nolan, like Lisa Joy, that really make things feel like the way that they want one of their shows to feel like. So anyway, that's like a very high level sort of thing. Like Craig Mazin was on like Sky and then went to Max, fully. And, like it's still a Craig Mazin show. I'm sure wherever Craig Mazin goes, it'll feel similar because he brings those people along with him.
I do think this supports your argument, but in a similar way to the prestige of being, this isn't an HBO show, has diminished with the creation of Max, I think, largely. Like they've had a lot, a lot bigger struggle with what's going on there. And so like media in general, like this type of stuff is changing. Like the landscape is changing very much. And it's probably becoming more equal footing as far as like what the provider gives you. And
entirely.
And so it's now more up to the creative people more than before or whatnot, right?
Yes, entirely. So like people should stop evaluating based on like, oh, this is a Netflix production versus this is a XYZ production, right? This is a Skydance thing, which is like a sub thing that like Tom Cruise is heavily invested in. So like Skydance, science fiction stuff, cool. They do great work or what have you. So
this is a movie. Totally. Or not movie. What was that thing called? What was the thing that was like TikTok for shows?
Oh, Quibi.
This is a Quibi. Yeah. Quibi presents the Fallout TV show.
Quibi presents the 8-minute Fallout TV show.
Every episode takes place between you pausing and looking at your Pip-Boy, unpausing and repausing.
How did you feel about the Pip-Boys?
So in Fallout 1 and 2, it's never clear until Fallout 3 what actually is your manipulation device. So I'm actually like not pro Pip-Boy even at all. So
sure.
I think it was cool because it is like a superpower augment style thing that you can kind of give the character, which is cool. Like
in the game, but not in the TV show.
Are you kidding?
Kind of turned it into.
That's how she was tracking the head because she put like a Vault Tech air tag.
Yeah, but that's like that's not a superpower. That's just technology, right? Well, so where I'm thinking,
I mean,
just to be clear,
it's a pretty big superpower to a guy compared to a guy who's fucking a chicken. But
Very true, very true. I'm just saying, like, it was like a time stop mechanism in the game, right? Like it was a momentary moment where you could like take a moment to aim, right? And we don't. That's not
VATS.
That's not a thing. Yeah, VATS, which is an element of the Pip-Boy.
I would say VATS is definitely a thing, right? But that is a pure game mechanic of it being originally a turn-based strategy, and then eventually it gets evolved to what it is. And also the pause on pause, I consider that purely a game mechanic, not actually something that influences the world at all.
I thought that it was more Pip-Boy related and might be like an advantage that Vault Dwellers had.
No, I don't think so. Personally. Especially because the best way to play Fallout 4, every second screen experience that I've ever seen is terrible. Except the Fallout 4 Pip-Boy companion app. That is how I played Fallout 4. And that is the coolest thing, to have like a little tablet on your desk, and that's what you're using to like change your map markers and stuff. Yeah, whatever. Good. That's a big tangent, but the Pip-Boys in the show, pretty cool, pretty good. Yeah, I don't know. They were fine.
Cool. All right. What else did you have on the nature of adaptation? Like, what are your kind of like thoughts?
So this is definitely like my hottest take that I think I have, but it's not about the show. It's about adaptation in general. I think show adaptations where they are canon and, treated as the same level of canon as a game in the case of this show, I think generally, as a general rule, that causes more harm than good to the medium. And I think I've explained this before to you personally. And obviously you disagree. You're on a book podcast. The listeners are going to disagree. But like my level of interactivity to a medium is like book, or actually I would go show, book, video game. Video games are like peak media you interact with because you actually control the character. A book is a layer below because you think about what's happening, and some people have different perceptions as to what happened. And a show is you watch a thing occur. And like you can have different opinions.
Less to interpret.
Right. There's less to interpret. There's less to do. And so when I see this show getting this game getting an adaptation, I feel like when it's done this way, everything that happens in the show, and Todd Howard has even said, we consider this to be basically like a Fallout 5. We are now very locked into some things that might be influenced by the show. So, for example, the Watchmen movie could, like, if it were to become like a series, I don't know how you would really do this, but like they made the conscious choice to make it be like a nuclear attack versus like wild CGI creatures, whatever, coming down.
The squid,
the squids, yeah. And like that bothered me because now if they were to make a sequel to that movie,
especially for something that was so faithful outside of that one choice,
right.
Like it's so violently faithful outside of the one moment.
Right. Yeah. So now you're locked into like a big important thing. And I know this is almost like a cherry picked example and one you feel pretty strongly about. Yeah. We're locked into that choice. And so where there is a production decision that can limit what we can do in the show, that I feel like that struggle or that limits what is an otherwise like really expansive, able to be modified thing. So that's like so I guess like here's like a weird theory. I could never know how good this would be, but to Todd Howard's thing, this show gives us, or is like, we treat this as Fallout 5. As great as the show is, and as much as I love it, and Bird in the Hand is a thing, I think I would actually prefer Fallout 5, the video game.
I don't disagree with that in premise by any stretch. I would say that the one thing that I would counter with a little bit is that, especially with the way that this is framed, is there's a lot of perspective on it, right? Like a lot of this is based in perspective of what happened or what reality is in one way or another. And so I think that it plays well to say that like there's a lot to be interpreted here between events and like to be interrogated with like a deeper story, be it from a book, be it from a game, be it from like even interactive media in the form of a mobile game, which I would never call like a full game. Right. So I think that there are layers here that I like on the show. And at the same time, if Fallout 5 truly, whenever it's actually released, wanted to diverge from this, I don't think I would have any problem with it. I think I would be perfectly okay with it being separate canons in its own right, from even like a story perspective.
But
right?
they did
like
not.
we can enjoy.
But they have explicitly said this is, yeah. So that's my thing.
But until it isn't, right? And that's the thing, right? So there may come a day in which they're like,
okay,
well, that was a little much or not the direction that we wanted to go. And so I think just like taking it for what it is the most important thing to take away. That's also how, to be completely honest, that's also how like I have to ramify or like deal with the ramifications of Star Wars in my brain, because I am so invested in the extended universe that no longer exists. And I have to deal with the existing sequels, right? So like,
well, let's say this show season 2 does actually kill New Vegas. It like completely ruins the canon. That doesn't mean I never played Fallout New Vegas. Still did. I still do
entirely. It doesn't take that away from you. Right?
Yeah. So I think like, ultimately this is
very
fine.
rarely does the well actually become poisoned, which I think is one of the most important things. Like it takes so much for that well to become poisoned.
Well, and here's the thing too, like they have to make canon choices in these games that have expanding narratives. So like, for example, I think the New Vegas shot at the end is actually to assume that New Vegas has fallen and it's almost like a ruin. At least when I saw it, I actually didn't think that, but that seems to be the
depending on the ending. Yeah.
Well, no, hang on. I'm talking in the show. The show Vista show. It looks kind of shit.
They do a pan through though during the credits that shows the city as it is. I don't know if the credits are so cool in the show.
Maybe I haven't seen it.
They always show more. You got to look at the credits. Yeah.
Okay,
the credits show the tops. It shows it all.
Yeah, but does it show people?
Cool. It shows images of people walking, so it could be the past to that point.
Sure,
like it could be an image.
But point being, they have to make a decision about what happened to New Vegas. And the way New Vegas ends is either you take control, which is the shittiest choice you could do because you're going to die. Right. And so people who think yes man is the best decision, you're wrong.
I literally had I had this discussion tonight with new uncle-in-law. Anyway.
Sure. And House does win. That's the one to pick because the NCR sucks. Ball of Shady Sands. Yeah. We know they're going down. We want to believe in the NCR, but guess what? Tandy's been the president for like 30 years. Is it even a democracy? Anyways, House, is it a cryotube? He's pretty smart. He's the best. Caesar is kind of like
showing as Robco is pretty good, especially in the show. Like it only bolsters the choice of Mr. House.
Yes. And then Caesar is obviously like a crazy pick. But
yeah, only someone who's playing the ghoul character would pick.
Right. But there is 4 different choices you could make, right? And they have to pick one. And this even happens or 5. What's 5?
Technically, you can pick the Brotherhood of Steel if you side on the.
Oh, sure.
You technically
but that's
can.
Ultra cringe too.
Very technically.
They suck.
Yeah, ultra bad. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. There's 5. Yeah.
Point B. This has also happened within West Coast Fallout lore. One thing that is almost like a gripe of mine of New Vegas is like literally everywhere you go to the cons and they talk about I can't remember what he's called, but the vault dweller from the first game. You go to like
talk to his like subtitle? Is it the Survivor? It's something like that. But it's like a capitalized term.
Fallout 2 is the Chosen One. Fallout 3 is like the Vault Dweller or the Sole Survivor or something. Fallout 4 is the Courier, or New Vegas is the Courier. But anyways, you go throughout New Vegas, you go into Jamestown, and they talk about the character from Fallout 2. And they talk about decisions you made in that game, but you also didn't necessarily make those changes. If you kill Marcus in Fallout 2, he's not going to be in New Vegas, but he is.
Man, he is. Right. And I hope to God Marcus shows up in season 2. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm a pro. Make our first super mutant Marcus. Like, please. That would be so good.
That's like the funny thing from the H-Bomber guy video, which is like the difference between Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas is that like the first super mutant you encounter in Black is at Black Mountain in New Vegas, and he goes, "Wait, don't shoot.
Yes.
We have a complicated history.
Stop it! I'm not ready to fight.
Yeah.
So good.
But yeah, so that's like, I guess, my biggest hot take on adaptation, and also like the choices they make. Like, if in this show New Vegas is ruined and it's not the decision I made at the end of the game, like whatever, that's fine. I still made the decision in the game at the time, and also it's not. I don't own the IP, so to a certain degree, shut up is kind of the thing, right? Like to all the people that are upset online and flaming people, yeah. That's how I feel.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Also, you don't know what's going to happen. Also, like, just like this gets into the whole thing of like, lean back and enjoy the story. Your original story isn't ruined. Like,
Right.
and it's not changed. There are very limited exceptions on that rule, as far as like, oh, this very clearly like alters and like directly tries to spit in the face of things. You think about like the Halo show, like we talked about very earlier. They call it the silver timeline, and that's cool. And I think that I can adjust it out of my brain and be like, okay, this isn't really the fall of Onyx, and I'm not really seeing the fall of Reach and everything else. And I can kind of like wrestle with that and understand it as a different thing. But that's as close as it gets to like spitting in the face of a fan from a show perspective that I can think of, from an adaptation from a game perspective. I guess that's it's okay. It's not good by any stretch, but
we have all the examples for me to answer this in the way I will, but without knowing, I can't. Because the Halo show is not super good, I'm glad it's a different timeline. Because the Fallout show...
As a Halo, there are 2 episodes that are really good, and you should watch them because it will make you hate the rest of the show, and you'll get why.
But because the Fallout show is really good, I'm okay with it being canon. But like if the Fallout show was... If I was one of those people that's super angry online and like, oh my god,
yeah,
New Vegas has been retconned. Some parts have, probably, surely, because it has to, as I just said. But like, I don't know. With the way this show is, I'm glad it is canon, I guess, is the point.
That's interesting, and I appreciate that. This is actively happening with the Wheel of Time fandom, which is fascinating by comparison. Wheel of Time being a 14-book series, and folks are pretty verbal about their like, oh, you collapsed 2 books into one to make sure that a main character was on screen that was a famous actress. What? How fucking dare you? And there's a lot of that shit going on, and it's like the show is the story is still the same. The presentation of elements is still the same. And that's where I think like Fallout nails it, and it never like it doesn't violate that line because that line doesn't so firmly exist, because there's so much choice in narrative versus being a strict adaptation of existing material. And that I think is a benefit to its nature on the whole, like, because it is so open and loose that you can kind of like play around with it and mess around with it. I would be much more terrified by comparison of like the God of War adaptation that is coming down the line, because that is a direct narrative that has one through line through the whole thing. There's no choice. There's no optionality. Versus Fallout, it's like, it's so loosey goosey that you're playing around with toys as opposed to like specifically running through an obstacle course. So
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty
on the nature
measured.
of adaptation. That's sort of my analysis. So I guess like this brings into the question of like whether or not the like a show could potentially harm the like nature of adaptation, right? Like we've been saying, like is there anything that you find limiting potentially to like game canon, or like as it feeds back into story canon? You know, let's say they were publishing a game tomorrow. You know, I think that's a fascinating like thing to anticipate.
Yeah, I can't wait to play another Bethesda game where I'm finding my dad. Sorry, it's a joke.
just like this season.
Yeah, it's a joke, but it is funny that in Fallout 3, your objective is to find your dad. In Fallout 4, your objective is to find your son, who is named Father, and is a weird
and
version
you think
of your
is
dad.
Your dad.
Yeah, and
the whole time.
Yeah, whatever. And then this show is literally go find your dad. So
yeah.
I get why they do it, because it's a very simple hook. Probably gets the audience into it, but man, that was when Lucy goes to find her dad, I was like, really, guys, like
we're doing the same thing again.
Yeah. Versus go find the water purifier, and then when you do, we're gonna call you a turd and send you to the desert.
You know, there are better worse things to happen. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, also too, that is not
save
at
the
all.
wasteland. Capital
okay,
wasteland.
that's a wild thing. I want this again. For 2/3 of Fallout 1, you only have like 100 in-game days before the game is over. And then you get to a point where you solve the first dilemma of the game, and then the real game like opens up for the falling action. That was really cool. And like you can do things too where it's like you can basically take a chance and like send a water caravan to your vault because your water chip is broken. But like also if you pay the wrong people to do that,
which is also a whole plot point here,
yeah,
is that they
cool.
discovered
that water
like,
chip
a water
is
purifier
identical.
Yeah,
the prop is identical
Yeah.
to the one in Fallout 1, which was really cool.
Dope.
But yeah, that was cool. I liked how it was like time based, but also it does limit player freedom. So I doubt Bethesda would ever do that, and I don't mean that as a bad thing. But Bethesda typically treats like the player as like the most sacred
Important
part of their
the
story.
Yeah.
But anyways, non-joking.
Say what you will about
Please stop making me find my parental figure, but please keep making Fallout 5 or something. But yeah, canon and non-canon things. Like, what are some interleaving things? You mentioned at the beginning wanting to talk about tactics and like some of the implications that has on the story. So like, what is that?
Tactics and Brotherhood, right? So I like the idea. We were talking way about this, but like the idea of something being considered non-canon in the wider universe, but then like bringing in elements of it into the primary canon. So these games have been considered outside of canon since the mid 2000s. They were fun. They were different. They introduced me to the idea in the world. When Fallout 3 came out, it was cool. It was shocking. It wasn't anything like what I had played.
Right.
So it didn't feel the same at all, which was crazy. But it still felt, you know, it was interesting. It was reminiscent, and it made me go, wait, is that the same? And then you go to the wikis, you look things up, and it's like, oh, well, this NCR doesn't line up with the NCR of Tactics or Brotherhood at all. These are very different things. And like even the concept of I think even the nuclear war was off, if I remember Brotherhood correctly. It was all nuts.
Yeah.
But there's some cool things, right? There were some other elements where you're like, wow, the nature of power armor and its origination state like matches and mirrors, and you get more details. And so I think that there's something to be said about there are non-canon things that you should be able to pull into canon and make interesting. And that's what I'm excited about, potentially, given what we were talking about with Easter eggs, kind of right off the bat. It brings into, you know, scope by comparison. Star Wars has the biggest EU that exists outside of canon of any property, I think, that exists in the world as far as IP goes, in their Legends universe. And they failed to bring in the extended canon effectively. Now they're beginning to like rope it in gradually in the correct way with like Thrawn and other like primary characters that were super important to me like a decade ago. So we'll see how that plays out, but I think that already we're seeing those Easter eggs, like you were talking about with Nebraska and sort of the Central Unified Council and things like that kind of playing out. I'm curious to say the way that all like heads, and I hope that they can like bring in even tangent elements from something like Tactics to keep it interesting from a canon perspective. So yeah.
I would say
that's my whole argument.
I would say I agree with the argument. I co-sign it. My biggest complaint with a lot of these types of things, though, is when they do get overly on connecting and interleaving the different parts of story, which I think like
make it a bit. Don't make it serious. Yeah.
Well, not even don't make it serious, but like don't make the world small, which is like I guess my biggest complaint with certain things of like that are in this show. Yeah. Is there anything more that you want to say about the tactics side? Because otherwise, don't make things small. I think is important. Like we get like little like flesh out moments like Operation Anchorage. They mention Utah and abjectly, I forget the guy's name from Hearts, the DLC, but Joshua Graham.
mentions Joshua Graham. Someone mentions his cult at one point, and I think it's the chicken fucker, or it's adjacent to the chicken fucker, or it's like on a sign at the same point as he is. But it's brought up at the very least. And like that's a great way to include those kind of things and like clue into them without like making them overt. And it's just it's a clever nod, it's a nice nod, but especially to things that have been like rendered not especially canon, you can like cleverly rewrap those things in.
especially what they might do for season 2. So that's like a big thing too with like Joshua Graham's thing and the Honest Hearts DLC is like they have basically like he has kind of weird, but he's like keeping like the white legs like really pure and not getting them involved in conflict. But then the other like Mormon missionary guys like, no, we have to stand and fight. And then like you ultimately decide like, do you end the cycle of violence or do you continue it for your own preservation? And like we don't really know, or like again, this is where they have to choose what happens. And so like what choice are the showrunners going to take with that Honest Hearts DLC and like what Joshua Graham's doing? Because what if the burned man is in season 2, which would be pretty cool, and that's probably fan service that would make me be okay with it, right? Like I know I just said don't make the world small, but if you gave me Joshua Graham and he's well done and as complex of a character as he was in Honest Hearts, I would
wrapped in bandages, I would lose my mind.
Yeah,
totally get it. Yeah. And that's where I sit on it on the whole. I just think that like bring it to the fore where it should be, but never to the precipice of the most important thing in the story, right? Like keep things peripheral where necessary.
I know we're talking about like people we'd like to see in season 2 and things like that. But I think there's a revelation I had. I shared it in the Discord a while ago. There is one character that I would love to see them make a canon choice for that you didn't kill in New Vegas, because that is an option. And that would be Matthew Perry being in season 2. I had I don't know what made me think of that. Oh, I know exactly what it was. I was testing mods for New Vegas and I watched the intro and I was like,
I did this too after the show came out.
Yeah, I was like, damn, that really sucks. Because like for those that don't know, people that are maybe listening here just watch the show, don't know background context, Matthew Perry was a huge Fallout fan, like huge. Like there's this famous clip on YouTube that you can go watch where he was on the Ellen show and he literally brought a copy of New Vegas and Ellen's like calling
he talks
him
about it.
Yeah, Ellen's calling him like a nerd and stuff like that, and he's like, I don't care, I love Fallout. Like
this is one of my favorite games growing up. I love Fallout 2.
Yeah,
and, like just gets into it.
Yeah. And man, that would be a reprised role that I would have loved to see, but obviously for circumstances I cannot, and that made me really sad when I thought about that.
I would imagine, especially given Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy's penchant for doing this kind of thing, that they would pay homage. I mean, Michael Crichton's grave is in Westworld season 1. Yeah. So I would not be shocked if we didn't see like a Benny reference.
I would love to see his checkered jacket,
just like
or
pay
his
homage.
Browning high power Maria would be really cool to see. But yeah.
Even if I would be okay, I truly would be okay if someone else played the character just to pay homage. Well, I understand, but what I'm saying is like I would like to see the character, even if it is just to die, to like just pay homage to the fact that he exists and he should exist in the canon. I should say, play the character, don't voice, just show up. We see the jacket from behind.
Yeah, if they can deep fake him,
and we know
maybe doing something.
You don't even need a deep fake. Like you just do like a behind the shot, like it's a stunt man playing it, a filler. You see the jacket, you know that it's meant to be Matthew Perry. He goes away. He goes to kill the courier. The whole story plays out.
Sure.
We don't worry about it.
Oh, no, wait. If they kill the courier, I'm going to freak the fuck out. Well, if season 2 opens, I know I said that I'm okay with their canon choices. But if season 2 opens with the courier not getting out of the grave, I'm going to freak out, Crossland.
No, I'm not suggesting that we go through the whole thing that we've been through before. But I'm saying that, like, we can see like this setup for what happens.
Okay.
Right. Right. And then maybe the way that the story plays out is that we see the fallout of someone's decision in New Vegas, right? Like that could be.
I hate that pun.
Could be a fun plot for. Yeah, I understand, but it could be a fun way for that to play out. So
on the nature of like good canon changes, making the world smaller, etc. I do kind of want to talk about like the board meeting, which I think I posted this in Discord actually too. That I don't live react to things very often. But I think I did post in Discord. I think I might have my first problem with the show or something along those lines. And it was the board meeting. And to be clear, it is not that in the game that is rather critical of elements of capitalism that lead to endless war and that type of stuff, that I'm upset that a whole bunch of different companies got together. What I'm upset, I don't even know if I'd classify as upset, but what I didn't like was that typically in what I've seen in Fallout games is there's a lot of like corporate espionage and deception between the different groups. And obviously, like, Robco is a robotic manufacturer by Robert House. He's like the Howard Hughes of the thing. Naturally, he's going to sell robots to Vault-Tec. But, like, is he... I don't actually know if in the canon he was declared as a member of the board or, like, why he's there. I think I felt like it made the world remarkably simple. Like, instead of it being a complex web of, like, different incentive structures of capitalist corporations and, like, endless profiteering, it felt more like, and especially when you see Sinclair's character, it felt just like mustache twirling evil people.
See, that's so interesting. So my takeaway, and this I think is only because like I played the games and otherwise, is I thought that this was them still playing that espionage game, that like high level game against each other. This still felt like they were gambling and they were like making moves. There was some cooperation, but was that cooperation like fully communicative of what they were doing? No. And that's where I think that it still honored the heart of the matter. And this is where I would say, for me, this is where it diverges the worst from game canon. This is like that separation point for me where I have to be like, it seems like there was like a climbing thing and like an infestation of like salespeople in different organizations trying to like, you know, co-sell things upwards and whatnot, versus this is like a more dramatic change for drama's sake.
Right.
To me, this is the most aggressive shift from the original story. But
yeah, and I think like
I'm okay with it.
I also don't have enough information to appropriately act. Like, I think a lot of people are jumping to conclusions. Sure. For example, like the biggest one, which I don't think either of us are going to agree with. I actually do think we have enough to make a decision on this. Vault-Tec didn't drop the fucking bomb.
No,
like
right.
The
There's
amount
an
of people
argument
online,
that maybe they encouraged someone to drop a bomb, but
right. But the amount, so there has been some rhetoric online that's like, oh my god, I can't believe those idiots would make it so that they started the war. Okay, first of all, Cooper's with his daughter when the bombs drop, and like clearly his wife expresses,
which means that
a desire. Like, there's going to be
he's been spying on the whole operation,
right?
You know,
and she even says like, "There's going to be no dogs in the vault. Where I'm making sure you're safe. You're just going to have to deal with it." Would she really turn around and do that? Then there's the other thing of like in New Vegas, House talks about how he knows the bombs are coming, but he's not ready. Is the he's not ready actually a reference to this board meeting with the proposed date, and they actually were just beaten by the adversarial power to drop the bomb? Probably. That's kind of like what they're going at. I think
that's the most right take. Yeah.
Right. And so we also just don't have enough information to act. Technically, they could have dropped the bomb, the first bomb, but I think that was probably used on the Shady Sands whole ordeal. Right. But that's like, yeah, I don't understand why people say online that Vault-Tec is the one that dropped the bomb, because also too, like, as a for-profit company, you need to look at all these different things. Like, this is really sad to think about, but like, boards of companies often get together and go, our operating expenditure is like 75% our headcount. Do we need that many people? And then they get laid off. That sucks. But that's what a for-profit company's board is going to talk about. If we sell vaults to people and there's not going to be a nuclear war, well, we have no business model. So we should think about
we have to start the bit. We have to consider a nuclear war. Yeah.
Right. And yes, maybe it is a bit aggressive to say that like we need a war, so we're going to drop the bomb, but like it is not like 100% out of the realm of possibility.
That's not canon a decision, and or also like the original game. All the games don't suggest that that's out of canon, right? Like it's altering in its own way, which is fascinating. And so people are like arguing or debating that because they're like, oh my god, that changes the context of everything that I've experienced beforehand. And it does. That's okay. But like, should it not? What if they did? And that's like a cool thing to interrogate. And like, you should have considered that beforehand.
I like the idea.
Crazy. And also, Robert House did. It's like he very clearly says in dialogue a couple of times he gets close to suggesting that other people drop the bomb outside of like the realm of control that he thought was going to happen.
Well, I like the idea
His dialogue is
that Robert
written.
House's character is smart enough to just look at markets, look at things that are happening in the world, and be able to execute on that decision without having insider knowledge like he had at that board meeting.
Rafi Silver, also the actor, so good as House. I loved him. It was only 3 lines or 4 lines, but he was like quintessential House for me.
Yeah. I like the idea of him being able to figure this out on his own and not need the board meeting, but you know, because he did fine, or because he was there, does it ultimately change his character and make him awful? No, he's still sitting at that table. He's still the dude from Robco who loves Vegas and is like our own little Howard Hughes. Yeah. However, before we leave this topic,
the betting man's man,
the one thing that I do not like, and it is probably my second or first, maybe tied. The other one is I don't like the MacGuffin at the end of the show, or the fusion thing. I don't really like that too much. That's too much. It's a bit of a MacGuffin.
We can talk about the show.
We'll get there.
We've talked so much around the show that we should probably talk about the show. We should, very end here, but
before we do, the one character that I don't like and change that I think is bad is Sinclair. So he is the...
Ooh.
Do you know who that is?
Yeah, of course.
He's the one that's sitting at the table that's representing Big Mountain, the think tank.
Correct.
Which is also kind of weird.
He's the larger dude.
Technically, he's not the Big Mountain, or like Big Mountain kind of screws him over, so I don't really know why he's there as a represent, but whatever. That's a nitpick. The thing I don't like is his story. It is kind of fucked up, but like Dean Domino, the big like socialist, not socialist, not in Fallout's world, the socialite, he like introduces Vera Keys to Sinclair, and then they end up like plotting. This is the whole like Sierra Madre, which is based off of a movie or whatever, probably like Good, Bad, and the Ugly, but I actually don't know. The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, it's like a Western or something, but this is what it's like loosely based off of. Vera originally plans to like betray Sinclair with Dean Domino, and then Sinclair finds out about it. He booby traps their safe house, and then like she confesses to him. It's this big ordeal of like, this is all like through audio logs and stuff, so I might be embellishing a bit, but like then he like realizes what he did is like wrong, and like it's not good to do this, right? So he goes and tries to like undo the booby trap so that when the bombs fall, she's not going to get hurt, she's not going to die, whatever. They're still like falling out, but like he's trying to do the right thing, and then he like fucks up, and then the like toxic cloud fume gas stuff that could come from his sabotaging of her ends up killing him, and he dies. And so that, and then now when like the bombs fall, they can't be together, so she dies somewhere completely separate, and then she dies in her room because she can't get into the vault. There's like this whole thing. But then the show, what they have him do is they're talking about vault experiments, and then he's like, we should gas them. And I'm like, granted, we don't know if this is when, before or after, like Vera like comes forward and he decides to like unbooby trap his thing. But like there's visuals, or there is no picture of Sinclair, but he's not like a fat old man. He's like a Robert House, like that type of person. So I was like, yeah, man, this like tragic story is a bit harmed by the portrayal of him in the show. I've heard a fan theory that they're like, what if this is secretly like Sinclair Senior, and the Sinclair we know of who's a shithead, and the Sinclair we know of in the DLC is like a Sinclair Junior, and who's younger than, and so that, oh God, I hope whoever said that is right.
That kind of tracks because of the like descriptions of them as people, right? Like Sinclair Senior is larger by comparison, and so yeah. I don't know.
But yeah, that makes sense to me. That's like the one thing that kind of sucked, because I'm maybe I'm a bit sappy, but I kind of like how like this tragic romance that ends in disaster for both parties is kind of like, it's kind of a nice story, and then to have him be like, gas them in the experiment, I'm like, come on. You're
never going to talk me out of a Shakespearean-esque storyline, like existing or not existing. So, but anyways, I'm pro that.
Yeah, but that's enough. It's ultimately fine. Whatever. I don't care. It's still what I said at the beginning. It's still a great show. I like the show a lot. It's great.
You know, Tim, we've talked a lot today about the show. and about the game around the show and everything else, but we haven't talked about the show
that
much itself.
We're going
which
flowers.
is kind of a brutal, brutal like inundation of our decision to like cover this. I would love to just like hear your like full thoughts on like your favorite episode, your best ofs, some of those components just like sung with you. We talked about some of our favorite like adaptation choices and things like that, but like, what was some of your favorite things that they brought to screen that you just like really appreciated?
It's definitely the super duper
talked about
mark.
the Yow guy, the gun.
Yeah. The super duper mark. That like episode is like so great.
I think it's episode 6.
Yes,
and it's my favorite episode too.
Yeah, it has. Well, then we can share as we go through this. But it's like to see a super duper mark, which we've seen in, I think, only in East Coast Fallouts. Does that actually exist? But I'm very happy to have it be a national chain or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, there's no point in not doing this. But to have it be like this black market run by raiders thing that has a Mr. Handy that has been like, you have cotton? Like, well, yes. What else would we have? Like this, like really, like it has the black
it's
comedy
so good.
of and then to see the ghouls and then
it
also
feels Monty Python-esque for the first time, which is like, thank you.
Yeah, and it has like the horror too of like that lady who's trying to say her name and like and I'm gushing.
And then you have Beavis and Butthead on the fucking couch, right? You literally have Beavis and Butthead there while you have a person who's just trying to remember her name, and like there's this tragedy that's brilliant. There's drugs that the ghoul needs. There's Hella Purnell like running through this whole situation being like, freedom is good. Except for you guys want to eat people's flesh and I have to fucking shoot you in the face.
Yeah.
Which is so tough. The whole episode is just brilliant in a very Mike Judge way, I think. I would compare it to like a Mike Judge TV show, Mike Judge episode.
Yeah, I certainly have no insight to the writer's room, but this does feel like almost like their vertical slice for a Fallout show. Like this feels like something you would almost have to write to understand. Like, do we understand this world? Just how interwoven the black comedy and like real raw drama is. Yeah. Like it just so very good. So that's my favorite episode, like end to end. I'd love that one. Yeah. Anything else on that? Or do you have other little moments? Yeah.
Man, that is, I agree with you. I think that is my favorite episode on the whole. I think that's followed up by my next favorite episode, which includes a lot of flashbacks from the ghouls' real life, from Walton Goggins' character perspective. And like getting the real perspective of the world is something that we don't get a whole lot of outside of the guides and everything else that we've experienced. I really liked the sort of frontal analysis of Fallout, and I particularly appreciated the fact that this ghoul, our guy, was the face that they literally painted over. I know that some people feel really like strangely about that and like otherwise, but fuck, man, I can imagine being a mascot and like them literally going like, I've got an image that I can like throw up over you with a fucking squeegee on every billboard across America. That's crazy. It's one of the craziest choices that they made in the show, and I think it lands perfectly.
Yeah, I had heard.
How'd you feel about Vault Boy?
I had heard early on, probably around the same time that I shared the photos of like the Super Duper March or something, that they were talking about how this show was going to involve a story with a pivotal Vault Tech character. And I was like, what the heck are you going to do that on? And then to ghoulify them is the only like logical choice really to end up doing that.
Incredible choice. Yeah.
And it's really good.
Because our image literally turned into the post-apocalyptic version. Like it pays off in so many different layers. It's incredible.
I would say
I love it.
To spin this again into a nitpick, which I'm so sorry I have to do, but my one issue with that episode and with in general pulling in a character like that is, for me, Fallout is the old world is dead and gone, and we've had an apocalypse, and now we're doing everything after the apocalypse. So it's like post apocalypse to me. And so where this show highlights pre-war is probably low points to me. But Bethesda's Fallout treats this more as a post-apocalypse. It kind of treats it as more retrospective on pre-war. And we see that through a lot of choices they've made with story. And that's ultimately fine. That's the direction the series is going. It's much better to accept it than to be upset about it. But
it's also
best they could have done it for me.
it's exclusive to the company's perspective, not the government's, which I think is such a better call. Because I think that if we got bogged down in the US's decision versus the CCRP, if I recall correctly from the game, like what's the Chinese Republic called? I think it's
I don't actually know, but
I think it's CCRP. But
sure.
But regardless, like the war that the Sino-American War, as it's called out, I think in
it's what's called the games.
Not fair.
Yeah.
Versus like everything else that's happening. I think that they like handle that well. You had mentioned something again off air wherein a USSR satellite.
Yeah,
seems
so
to
it's
be
in.
It's curious.
I believe it's the head, or it's wherever she uses the Ripper to cut off.
Oh God,
we haven't even talked about that.
We didn't even fucking talk about the regular story. I know that we're trying to wrap this up, but Jesus Christ, is the story not so fucking good? Anyway.
Yeah,
God.
But when she cuts off the dude's head with the Ripper, we're gonna keep talking. That's fine. Yeah. When she cuts off the dude's head with the Ripper, the satellite that is like their backdrop and that he's leaning against has the USSR on it, I believe, which is weird because Fallout typically has been a conflict where, yes, it was like kind of Soviet powers versus the US, but it very quickly, and it is the case mapping into our own timeline, that China is like the actual threat, and like and Russia or USSR in this case or whatever is really not. And so it's weird that they made a choice like that. I actually kind of feel like I'd need to check and see if it did say USSR on that satellite. I'm almost positive it did, but it is kind of weird, especially too where you see some pandering to potential Chinese market, that like it feels a little strange that they might have made this choice to make Russia be the bad guy. But I can't really know much about that.
There's so many mentions of like, not so many. I think it's maybe once or twice. Like Operation Anchorage is brought up from the Brotherhood of Steel. And otherwise, man, we haven't even talked about the fact that like the Brotherhood of Steel was presented as a religious organization, as opposed to the way that Bethesda presented it, which is not that way. Like they kind of like hinted at.
Well, what's
and, like,
weird
never
too
really
about Bethesda is they were the wholesome good guys because they're the brand recognized character in Fallout 3. But then Elder Maxon in Fallout 4 is such a shift in the opposite direction that it's like not believable.
And he's the son of...
Yeah, he's a character in Fallout 3 actually too.
Yeah. Right. He's a character, but he's also the son of a character from Fallout 2.
Yes, correct. Yep.
Wrong?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, okay. All right. Alexander, right? I think Maxon?
Yeah, because the whole shtick is that Fallout 1, they have a presence. Fallout 2, they don't. And like the remnants have gone somewhere. And also... The Brotherhood is a pre-war military faction that kind of got disconnected and broken off from the US government. And they happen to be like scientifically minded. Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. The Brotherhood being portrayed religious. I saw maybe a month ago a promotional photo of the like, I was raised Catholic, of the little incense shaker in front of the Brotherhood of Steel people. And it was a Twitter picture because it was that picture on Twitter and then just full of people going, the Brotherhood aren't religious. Bethesda's ruining the Brotherhood. And what's funny is when you unpack that, saying Bethesda is ruining the Brotherhood, what they're actually doing is they're being faithful to Fallout 1 and 2 Brotherhood, but people are just so primed to hate the show. They say they're not being good to whatever. I thought their portrayal was great.
It's some full Gamergate bullshit where they don't really know what the fuck they're arguing about. You know what I mean? Yeah. It feels like that.
Yeah, they're great, but the Brotherhood's totally awesome. The Elder is like very flippant or not flippant, but better words for how to describe him. Right. But like he's not like a do-gooder like Elder Lyons was. He's very much like to the charter. Right. And it makes sense that they would probably be a replacement for Maxon.
Ardent.
Yeah.
It brings this like sort of it brings an otherworldly element almost to the organization, to our understanding of the story, because like even if you're only a like Bethesda Fallout person, you never seen faith depicted outside of like people that are like, I'm faithful because I'm a cannibal. Like, and I'm following like a small religion that's like cool with eating people. Like that's the extent of faith.
You are missing one big example of faith, which is honest hearts.
Yeah, yes. You're entirely correct. Again, DLC wins in a lot of cases.
They really do.
Right, truly. Bethesda's DLC and the Obsidian DLC are just superior to the games by and large. But all this to say, the game, I think, nails a sort of fervent religiosity that, like, it otherwise doesn't try to. The games don't tackle. The later games don't tackle, at the very least. And there's some interesting notes that are brought up throughout Maximus's perspective. I do want to, just before we end this, I want to bring it back to characters and to beats and to favorite moments.
Okay.
I think that makes sense to actually talk about the show for a goddamn minute. But I mean, we have, but also we've talked a lot about the Fallout universe and the way that they've done so well from an adaptation perspective. We've been talking about the fact that they were dealt a shitty hand and they somehow landed 21 nonetheless on the blackjack table, right? Like that's what we've been talking about.
Sure.
What we missed is that the way that they got to 21 was by building characters, perspectives, production, and paying so much attention to the world and universe otherwise. So, all this to say, the initial episode that takes place mostly in the vault and then eventually splits perspectives does such a good job. We get Ella Purnell, the Vault Dweller's brother's perspective. He is such a good character.
Yeah, he's great.
Underrated the whole thing. Yeah. Her cousin that she fucked a couple of times, which the cousin fucking joke is so good. Because of
weird.
Course, like, what the fuck? Right. It's very weird, but it's very real and it's understandable. And it's like, yeah, we're fucking around, but we aren't gonna mate. Seriously.
Yeah.
And you're like, but
yep.
Yeah.
It is funny, and then he just kind of assumes the name of the other person and accepts his life from the
right. He literally like subsumes the existence of I'm just going to call him Greg, of whom was the wife of another Vault 31 dweller. Of whom we also figure out the Vault 31 dwellers are executives of Vault Tech, which is interesting. So like this. Man, based on the fact that like her literal Ella Purnell's father is Lucy's father is like an executive assistant, the character that Greg's character marries is, I don't know, a VP of commerce. Like it's something like that. Like, you know, just like some kind of like bullshit. She's like, I'm okay with having a kid. And like this guy marrying me, I lost my eye, getting stabbed out by a fork, which again, crazy to depict on screen. I don't know. It was the entire depiction of the vault violence, and then also resuming vault life was so
that was
interesting.
Like, it was pretty crazy to wash away all of that and just be like, everything's fine. We're having Jello cake.
The Jello cake. It was like, this is not good. How did you not realize this is not good? My sister isn't here. My dad isn't here. Did you think I was going to cope with this? Why didn't you kill me? Very interesting.
Well, and then he also suggests they kill the Raiders, and everyone's like, "What? We're going to rehabilitate them.
Why would you do that? we could turn them into fucking sex objects, and that's basically what it is. It's like they can be bred into the population. It's like no, and then he does.
Big question for you.
But
which Vault 31 executive would I want to be the most?
Who would you personally want to be the most? All right. So Tim Olson would love to be the VP of security.
Wrong.
And what's unfortunate about being the VP of security is that you're pulled pretty early into the 31 or 32, 33 pool. Like you're going to end up being an overseer that dies before you see the surface.
Nope.
But you're in charge. I understand that you disagree, but hear me out. Hear me out.
Okay. I just want to say
go ahead.
No, keep going.
Okay. You may disagree, but I think that you would be an early overseer because you would do a great job managing folks and managing their expectations. And then when they devolved into the history of things, you would just be like, yeah, this is the way that it is, dude. Like, I don't get why you thought that it would not be this way. And your like cognizant, proper explanation ability turns into gaslighting so competently with folks when they start to devolve and not understand things that you'd be the perfect transitional leader into people failing to understand what's going on. So I think you're one of those bubble leaders for 3233. I'm not disagreeing for myself. I'm like a salesman through and through. So like I fit into that cast.
I totally thought that was going to be similar. A compliment until it ended. Now
it was a compliment inadvertently. Like, let's understand that that's a capability that few people can achieve or should. Okay,
people are here for the Fallout show. So the answer, actually, Crossland, is the little brain Roomba guy. That's who I want to be. I want to be the brain Roomba guy. Oh no! I live forever. I'm a little Roomba.
That was the funniest joke of the whole series. And I forgot about it until you brought it up.
The best.
Like, him having a syringe and like the intense cut and he misses. It was just so good.
Hold still.
Oh my god! I'm going to kill you around. I genuinely think that was the best joke of the whole show.
It was so good because you're expecting there to be some like oracle that's malicious, like plugged in, and it's just a little brain Roomba guy who's been stuck for how many years.
What's better is like, obviously this is an Amazon show. They've got the Up Plus thing that you can get like the bonus facts on, and literally the fact for that character is brain in a Roomba. Like, wait, that's what? The character name. Yeah, it's brain on a Roomba.
No way.
It's so good. Yeah, that's literally what it is on Amazon TV Plus. It's so good. It's so funny.
Is there a click to buy?
So there's not, from what I saw on my PlayStation, but at the very least it made me giggle so hard when I was like flipping through things.
That's awesome.
God, it was so good.
Yeah, I want to be I want to be the brain in the Roomba.
You would also be you would either be the early out, like I said, or you'd be the brain on the Roomba.
I'd be the Roomba.
That is yeah.
Who would you be?
That is so funny. I think I've outed myself over the course of time as Ella Purnell's father. I'd be the executive assistant. I'd be out early, unfortunately, for myself and others, which is brutal to accept, but I think I could take it.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, I think this should be.
I think so. I'd hope for better, and I would work for better, but given the pre-status life and the pre-war life, that's where I land, buddy. So I'm a mid-level manager. Bummer. But one more generation and my children could make it out alive. They might solve the problem, though. How'd you feel about Moldaver? Brutal. No,
I didn't know how to wrap a bow around that part of your character.
That was a good transition, because I was going to ask about Moldaver, of whom I think is maybe the only like plot critical character that we haven't really talked about on the most part. Is we've like, God damn it, we've talked so much about the show, but we haven't talked about the show once again.
We're doing
Moldaver. I know we are. I know, but I was trying to adhere to our rules, and we're at 148. We'll do better. Moldaver as a part of the show is so fascinating, I think, as a deuter antagonist, right? Like she fills the void of antagonist for a while, but we begin to like understand her perspective and like come to a semblance of agreement, perchance, with what she thinks or how she thinks society should have existed and should exist going forward. How do you feel about the end of the show?
Yeah, okay. So, well, first of all, I was thinking about this as I was writing the notes for what we were going to talk about today and kind of sequentially going through the show. Why did she attack the vault with raiders? That seems strange, especially because at the end of the show, she's with the NCR. Like her place is literally NCR headquarters of Los Angeles, but she attacked the vault with raiders who then literally tried to rape and murder Lucy. So it's kind of like, why did that happen that way?
I think it's only because she thought that like the scientist's thing was there potentially, but like it again, I would agree with you. The instigating instance does not make sense.
Yeah, but I think
that's
like,
sort of revenge, perhaps. But
yeah, but even so, it's kind of I don't know. Like it was a weird plot point that like we never came back to of why she would hire raiders to attack a vault. That also you kind of almost feel like you want a tactical insertion for that, and it's almost like there's NCR Rangers for such a purpose, and they clearly are still kicking around slightly, as it was shown at least like in a flash. But anyways, regardless. How did the show end? What did I think of it? I think like this is like where we think of, or talk about like the MacGuffin almost too of the whole thing of like find your dad, but we actually have like this other thing that we're trying to do. Fusion. I think it's ultimately good. I don't know. I don't want to be negative, but I think like the thing that solves the crisis of the wasteland isn't unlimited energy. Like in a sense, like despite the fact that like the Sino-American War in Fallout was formed through or like initiated by a resource war, I don't think you solve peace on Earth by having, at least at this stage. If before the war you could solve the energy crisis, maybe you could. But I think like a big thing in Fallout is that like often like ideology and like competing forces for, you know, XYZ reason that isn't necessarily power is like the reason why that war never changes, or whatever overused phrase we want to use. But like the ending visually was pleasing. I mean, like to watch the NCR and Brotherhood fight is something that you don't really get to see very well in New Vegas, because they don't really ever have a conflict. The NCR exists in Fallout 2, but the Brotherhood functionally doesn't. So it was cool to see the two sides fighting. I wished for a grander fight, but the ending was pretty good. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it.
As far as the ending itself went, from the technology perspective of the energy availability, you're totally right. This was never going to solve the problem, but it was like it was a wishbone to some degree that she was like yanking on. She just thought that this was going to be the problem. If you solve this, everything else is fine. As though this was the ancient issue of energy, right? And so this is the hopeful, to me, from my perspective, this is like the hopeful socialist perspective of like, if we just solve energy, everything else will be okay. And the reality is that when you just solve that one problem, that doesn't solve all the other issues. Like the lineup of things that are wrong still exists. And like solving one problem on the most top nebulous extracted level does not change the reality of a nuclear wasteland that has numerous economy issues, has ecology issues, everything else. This is just like, you were so hopeful of something that was impossible to solve. And I think that also speaks to the sort of J.D. Sand's side of the equation from this story's perspective, right? Where like, we can make a new city, we can make a capital, we can restore democracy, we can live under a tyranny of a single democratically elected leader, quote, for 30 years, quote, which Russia is about at that point right now with Vladimir Putin. Just to be clear, he's going to be elected for his 30th year in power this year. Was actually 2 weeks ago. Anyway, point being, that's similar to what's going on in Fallout a couple of years prior to the actual bomb falling on J.D. Sands. So all this to say, like, there's a hopefulness of the end of these things, which also includes Cornell's mother included in this situation being the like lesbian lover of Moldaver. And that is also an interesting spin on like, I wanted out of the like governmental perspective, and I kind of want to know more about like where she came from, because I don't think we got enough for that ending to feel the right way for Moldaver. For Ella's character, it makes sense. For Lucy, it makes sense as to why she shot her, to like put her out of misery, especially with her experience in the Super Duper March. She knows that she's not a person. Like there's a lot to unpack in that final moment, in that final episode. I don't know. I of all of the episodes, the finale hit well, but it hit like an 8 out of 10. When a lot of the rest of the episodes hit like 8s or 9s, for the most part. Yeah.
On the subject of Lucy's mom getting shot, maybe this makes me a bad person or something, but I've seen people like mentally deteriorate. Like my grandmother, for example, died of Alzheimer's. Of
course.
And, family going through similar types of things. Man, to keep somebody that is like not themselves anymore, like at your table like that, is kind of
tough. Yeah.
Well,
yeah. It's messed up.
I don't know. Maybe, well, especially a ghoul too, because that's like way different. Like people with Alzheimer's, like not at the end, but like in the midpoint, they're kind of fun to be around. They're kind of cool. But like, I don't know why you would keep the partner around as a ghoul. That's just a little weird.
Right.
But yeah, and I think
it's like a savior complex, right, on her part.
I think a thing that is tricky to me too is that like, and it's also the reveal that like Lucy's visions of corn isn't actually like in the vault. That was kind of like a cool twist that they did, where it's like, it's actually agriculture at Shady Sands. I do think it's kind of lame that the nuke that hits Shady Sands comes from like domestic violence of a husband. That's kind of, I mean, it's probably good to get more stories like that like out, but like in a way it feels strange.
For it to be Shady Sands in particular feels like a lot. You know, like if we could build up like a San Francisco story
that does
or something else.
Those do exist.
I don't know.
The Empire of She. I do think, like, I'm not trying to, especially because we got two,
I know.
Especially because we got two dudes on here. I'm not trying to say that, like, man, it's implausible that like a husband would do something like that to his wife. No, it totally is, and they're certainly capable of all that shit. But that is a like, it goes to my thing of, I think, the world being smaller.
Yes,
him
right.
Executing
which is why I'm like,
the
Shady Sands is this capital. It's this sort of like central point of freedom. And again, I think that's reiterated especially through Moldaver's perspective, with Lucy's mom being like, this is a free state in which, you know, we can exist as female lovers, as lesbian lovers, and like everything else. And that just like furthers the sort of like counter hatred, you know, which
I wonder what position, which is why that Lucy's mother had within the like NCR, or was she just a citizen? Like, I wonder like if that helps my calculus on the import of what was happening, right? Because like if she's like a senator or like a person holding power, like maybe that makes something like that different. But
it being the capital of the NCR is the thing that I draw personal. Like we were talking about like nitpicks. That is my primary lore nitpick, is like, did it need to be like the core of everything? Could it have been like another city? Doesn't need to be Shady Sands. And I'm okay with it being it in the end, because I think that the story pays off well. But
yeah, there are like other locations within there that it, like, especially too, because the LA Boneyard, Shady Sands is not actually in the LA Boneyard. It's more like Bakersfield, maybe. I don't think that's right either, but more, I don't know, closer to LA, like Nevada, or not Reno, not Vegas, but it's like, it's somewhere like northeast of Los Angeles. But there are like other great towns that you could have nuked, like Junktown, the hub, maybe even New Reno, but that's too far from our current setting. But Shady Sands was moved closer to LA. So there was the opportunity to not necessarily destroy Shady Sands. And again, I'm also totally fine with the NCR going away. Of the three writers for New Vegas, Chris Avallone was like really pushing for New Vegas, or Vegas, and the NCR to be destroyed. That's like the core thing of the final DLC for that game, was that it would eventually collapse, but not through a means that really makes a lot of sense. To be fair, I think it's kind of cheesy.
Yeah, but, I actually like the nuking better.
Yeah, the nuking's better than tunnelers. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But it still plays into the fact that like this large government organization being downplayed by like a love affair that escapes the vault is a little, to me, that is the biggest off point of the entire series. That is my personal biggest gripe, is the loss of Shady Sands to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if that makes sense. Like I could have taken it with almost any other city. And I would have loved to have seen Shady Sands fall live, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But we, at the same time, we do kind of get the fall live via Maximus's perspective. So like it still plays out in a way that I'm satisfied by. But yeah, I'm a little bit tossed in that one moment from the series personally. I loved it as it was portrayed on screen, but as I go to the refrigerator logic of thinking about it afterwards, I'm like, well, could it have been better? So yeah, neither here nor there. We've again talked around this. Favorite scene?
You should go first.
Singular favorite. Mine is genuinely, and I think we both mentioned this. We mentioned our favorite episode is the whole like Super Duper Mart, which was so good. But I personally loved seeing Walton Goggins, the Ghoul's character, played the spy gradually as he was like roped into the religious kind of experience of it all, as he was like pulled into the cemetery and everything else. I thought that scene was so well written, despite it not being what I expected to be so cool. The coolest scene though was the original duel in the like junkyard town where there's all the shooting and violence and craziness in like episode 2 or 3. That sort of like face off between the Ghoul, Maximus, and Lucy was stick. It was perfect. That was Fallout to a T. Those are my two, I would say.
I have a really hard time thinking of a particular scene because, like I said, like episode 6. That's why I wanted you to go first. I think that what I will pick is probably the breakout scene of the vault from where they had the medical treatment.
Great
and
scene.
This is, I'm going to have to nail it down, but like we also didn't talk about this, so I'll just kind of run through it. But like the reveal twist of having a collection of people that we think are like being harmed and treated like incorrectly or whatever. And they're also in like the cryotubes. And then we find out that it's actually from the guy's ancestor that has like one eye, the overseer. It finds out that like it's actually like his ancestors or like relatives that are in there and they were harmed and like this vault is trying to be better. I think I made the joke earlier about the like, do you want to make my penis explode or whatever? But I think it's probably like, because again, I said Maximus is the character I am in a Fallout game. It is probably like Maximus just vegging and watching like old TV and like eating all this pre-war food that is not radiated, and then seeing Lucy go by and then go like, oh shit, I need to power up. So like Lucy getting kicked out, and we think getting kicked out for an awful or like we think not getting kicked out, we think she's gonna die. And then Maximus going like, oh fuck, and then switching, turning it on. That's my scene. Is the like, is that to watch his character go from this lavish life to then realize like something he should go do. Which again, you said he's still the ugly, but that was like a moment of light for him in a way.
Agreed. But at the same time, she didn't need saving, right?
True.
So, like,
true.
she did save herself, and he showed up at the end and was just boxing people who didn't deserve it, which is why, again, like, he is the ugly quote. I wouldn't call him, you haven't seen it, so it doesn't really matter, but for people who are listening, he is not as bad as the ugly in the aforementioned story, but he is that archetype meant to be portrayed.
I would say, too.
And so
honorable mention scene, which you do see more light from him, so I wonder if this changes your calculus. The other squire that he's feuding with, he makes it very clear, even though he's kind of the reason he was put in that position by stomping his foot out, like, the Brotherhood are going to hurt you, take this head instead and go, and then like I'll cover for you, like this sucks. Also, I think that guy's coming back. I think he's a character in season 2.
Oh, entirely. I think he's definitely a character in season 2. And it's important to say that it's not that the ugly doesn't do anything right or correct. This entire thing is like a calculus that is based on the end of their stories, and do the ends justify the means. Like that is the entire point of Good, Bad, and the Ugly. That's to say, we're not at the end yet, right? And so like we do have these perspectives of these characters. They switched. Could they switch again? Will they switch more? Are they going to be different? And I think that's what's so fun about the series, is that everyone has potential to get better and to get worse. And I think in particular, I am the most excited for the potential from Lucy's character. I see the ghoul generally getting better or more aligned with the way that I think like he believes the world should be. So he's going to still be the bad, but the bad leads to the good. And I just see Maximus going down this path of the worst, because he's willing to sell himself out continually. Like he has done good. He's done better. He's been doing... But he is continuing down the path.
Yeah, he's going to have the sickest gear, though. So
yeah,
take that.
He's going to have the coolest guns, and he could turn up at the end. This could just be a Seventh Samurai secretly, and they'll all turn around, they'll shoot everyone else, and it'll all be good in the end. But yeah, I'm progressively curious as to where the story is going to go. The characters are incredible. The acting is incredible. The production design is ridiculous, and I have nothing but love for the show itself. We talked a lot about the lore on the whole, which super down with, but my God, the reason we did is because the show is so incredible. Like, and that's why we weren't tearing it apart ounce by ounce, piece by piece.
Yeah, we could go through every episode and like talk about them, but I think I like that we kept it pretty high and then dipped into specific episode examples. But the show through and through is just really fun to watch. The black comedy, the seriousness, all the different things, like didn't talk about but like the first moment of tension we see of the railroad crossing is like really cool, because you get the vibes of like,
so good.
Like, we don't have a gun, right. You don't have a gun, but then it turns out like they do. So it's like you constantly have this swing in different directions of like what is actually, who can you trust, who can you not trust, but it's like also kind of funny. Like it's just
very funny.
Really good blend to everything. Yeah.
What are you most looking forward to in season 2? And then we'll end it after this. Like, what are you most excited for about it season 2?
Seeing Yes Man being the sole proprietor of a decrepit and broken down New Vegas. No, probably not. I'm hoping that like if they do spend time in New Vegas, it is very faithful to the source material while not being restricted by it. So like, for example, I would like to see like what happened to the boomers if they do or don't exist. Do the NCR still have a tiny base at McCarran National Airport? Is because you kind of don't see it from the vista you get. Are we going to see the Kings running around, doing their Elvis accents? I guess I'm just...
Be very funny.
I'm really hoping, and the vista or the set pieces are great. Like we have where the super mutants are. I want like both Black Mountain and I can't remember, but the like ski resort. We have the Hoover Dam. Like there are so many cool pieces they could play with, and I hope they play with them and be faithfully additive to the canon. Again, whatever choices they make and invalidate my playthrough, I don't care. But just like, I want to see them play more in the Fallout New Vegas 2 that I never got. That's kind of what I want.
Play in the sandbox.
Yeah.
I particularly agree with that. I think that for me, what I want to see, and we get into this in Dead Hearts and otherwise, but I want to see more of the Utah side. I want to see a little bit more of the sort of interrogation of... This sounds wild considering where we're at in the series so far, but I want to see sort of the New Vegas approach to like life post-apocalypse, but then also like faith post-apocalypse. We haven't gotten into like sort of interrogation of like any ideology at this point for the most part. And I would love to see the series like try to tackle some of those things. So I'd love to see something like Dead Hearts and otherwise. And I would love to see us like try to tackle, the larger ideas of existence, and see, because that's what I loved so much about the DLC for Fallout New Vegas. So, we'll see.
By the way, the DLC is Honest Hearts is the Utah one.
Honest Hearts.
And
God,
in Dead Money.
Dead Money?
Is the city.
Dead Money.
Yeah.
God, I mixed them. Yeah, it was so close.
Just to clarify, so people aren't like, wait, which one? A or B?
Dead Hearts. Yeah. Right. Yeah. A and B. But I want to see, for exactly the reason that you cited, I want to see both, because I think it doesn't need to even relate to either, but it needs to include the factions or discuss it. And it's one of the things that I think that the Bethesda series in particular did well with the Children of the Atom is it began to interrogate the idea of people and religions post-apocalypse, which I personally didn't get from Fallout 2 nearly as actively.
Or similarly, again, another theme of that in New Vegas, the followers of the apocalypse are kind of this, like, is the word secular religious or spiritual group in a way, or like as spiritual as secularists can be, right? Like it's interesting. Right. Yeah.
So that's what I would like to see in addition to anything else. That's sort of like an additive to where I think the story is going. But I think in particular, when you're hitting on Vegas, it is so easy to play into sort of like religious stereotypes and otherwise. Like you play on the post, like the people who don't give a shit, you play on the people who do. And that's why I'd like Gomorrah as like an outset, as a casino versus everything else, which is in the credits, by the way.
Oh, fuck. I'm going to have to watch those.
Again, just watch the credits for episode 8. It's crazy. They include so much. They show Gomorrah, the tops. They don't show the other one because there are 4 casinos,
the Ultra Lux,
right, in the strip,
and then I can't remember.
They show the Ultra Lux, but one of them is decrepit, like the building fell in.
It's probably the one that Benny's had, which is, I think they're called the like the Showman or something. It's the casino I spend the least amount of time in because there's one quest that takes place there
naturally. Right. So it looks like one building is fallen in and the rest are good. So that's what makes me feel like it's post Vegas and they're like giving it attention. So we'll see. That said, super pleased, super happy. I'm excited to see where it goes.
My PJ Predicts question for you is where is Hank McClane going?
Hank McClane. Oh man, I think he is going straight to Yes Man because he doesn't believe that Rob is still alive. I think that he's heading for Yes Man.
Yes Man. It's gonna be. I almost feel like it's gonna be Yes Man.
Yes Man's gonna be a character. Yeah. I believe that Mr. House is still alive, but I think that Yes Man is comparatively to what we experienced in New Vegas.
Oh,
she
shit.
Silenced him.
Sorry, but I'm just thinking, Yes Man is voiced by a robotic-voiced Matthew Perry. Maybe that's our tie-in.
Right.
Maybe you AI voice Matthew Perry.
They won't do that.
That would probably be a little weird, especially if you didn't approve it. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways.
I would.
Yes, he's going to Yes Man, is what you're saying.
I think so. I'd believe they would turn himself in and be like, Yes Man, please help me out. Please assist. Direct me to Robco. And he gets brought to Mr. House.
But that's not how Yes Man works.
His brain. No, I know. But I'm suggesting plot points.
Yeah, sorry.
You can fix the mid details. You can fix the middle details.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm suggesting large.
I'm going, that's not how Yes Man works. Yeah.
Well, I know. But what I'm saying is like he goes to Yes Man. He then shows up, he does things, he gets his brain sucked out, and then he ends up like Lucy needs to choose between the brain of her father or the brain of a genius.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And I think that would be fascinating. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't even think about Lucy. I was just thinking about Hank.
Could be cool. Well, because I think that she's the one who's making the choices, right? She's the vault dweller. She's making the calls. She chooses the old guy because she learned that her father sucks over the course of the last and this season. Like it feels like a logical way to build. That might not be the way that it goes, but it's a logical way to build. Cool. How about you? What do you think?
I think Hank McClane is going to go to the basement of the Tops where House is.
Mm-hmm.
But House isn't going to be there. He's going to be dead. New Vegas is actually in ruin. But there is a decent amount of, I don't know who. It wouldn't be the NCR because he's just coming from the NCR as their prisoner. And he's basically looking for, hopefully, House. No, sorry, take it back. House is going to be alive. They wouldn't put that character, or the guy in for him not to be there.
Correct.
House is going to be alive. he is going to try to get what remains of his Robco Securitrons and rally basically something to go get the MacGuffin back from Moldaver. And then there might be like a Brotherhood versus Robco Securitron plus other people.
Over Hoover Dam, perhaps?
Not over Hoover Dam, but over the MacGuffin.
No, over the MacGuffin, but like on Hoover Dam.
Oh, sure,
right?
sure.
Yeah. Right. Interesting.
Hopefully some boomers too, because I like the boomers because they're such a good character of like, we had such a perfect life and we need to bomb everyone that's different from us. So I hope the boomers are in it in some fashion because they're great.
I think they will be. They're a very like Mad Max-esque faction, which I think you need to include.
Here's maybe an additive question that needs just a simple yes or no, or maybe you can expand upon it, but will the Legion be at all in the next season?
My answer is I hope so. I hope that we actually run into a New Vegas that is yet to be solved. I know that fucks with the timeline, but I would be okay with fucking with the timeline if it led to an interesting conversation around the factions again. I'd be okay if we adjust out the New Vegas timeline 50 years or whatever it is from origin point to where we are now to be like, hey, none of this is resolved. Let's resolve it as a part of the story arc. I think that'd be great, personally.
So, did you just say we were 50 years ahead?
It was a shit show post. I'm not suggesting that 50 is the right amount. I think this game takes place 7 years after the events of New Vegas. I think you're right. I was throwing out a number.
Sure, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if that changes your thoughts at all.
No, it doesn't. 7 years doesn't change the math for me. I mentally would love for it to have been the actual result, for it to have been in a stalemate and not like nothing actually changed, right? Like we thought that we were doing something as the courier, but nothing actually happened. Like the real end is that nothing changes because war never changes. But who knows? Yeah, that's like a long ball pitch on an idea for a season. It doesn't need to be that way. I can see that being very upsetting for a lot of people who would prefer a resolution to New Vegas and then to see it resolve. But at the same time, people are going to be mad no matter how New Vegas ended because there are 5 endings, right? So like, I think it would be better to see an ending play out than it would be to like assume an ending and then watch it happen like post an ending. I don't know. It's like an adaptation take on the whole, but.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you agree? Do you think similarly? Are you afraid of?
I feel, and I'll go back to my metaphor of levels of escalation in forms of media. I think there is too complicated of a narrative to interleave with resolving the MacGuffin from season 1, the complexity of the Brotherhood wanting the MacGuffin, the Vault Tech motivations. But
no one left with the MacGuffin, right? Like the MacGuffin is just there.
It's there to be secured by the Brotherhood.
Right.
I don't think the Brotherhood... No, especially too, because the Brotherhood takes control at the end because Maximus is like declared a knight or something, right? And then there's the whole thing with the Elder. Right. So I think, go back slightly, the narrative complexity of having the Brotherhood with the MacGuffin, the Vault Tech motivations, and then the potential for, off of my prediction, of a capitalist house with Robco drones wanting his own motivations. I think
You're totally right.
I think there is too much to do there to not reduce the
You've removed Caesar's.
Caesar's
you
Legion,
remove it. You're entirely correct.
Could exist, but only as a roving band of raiders. And also, I think it's kind of, not to discount the showrunners or the writers, I think it would be too much of a tonal shift to introduce the type of brutality that exists within the Legion. It would get rid of the fun.
Yeah. It would be like taking Total Recall and then jumping to Fury Road, right? Like Total Recall is like a fun, haha, science fiction, and then Fury Road being like fucking all the boys cheering and painting their mouths. Right. Like, yeah. Totally get it. I understand. I think that actually in the end I agree with you entirely. I think that you're more correct on the path of like the picture to paint is one between the future existence of Robco, the past existence of Vault-Tec, the Ghoul, and then the Brotherhood having the technology of the future that both of them wanted. And like that dichotomy will be the way that the story plays out. So
cool. Yeah, well, one of us will have to drink a half gallon of blue milk to settle this bet.
Fair enough. What am I gonna do if blue milk's not available when I lose?
I can make it. Just a little dye and some vanilla. We're good to go.
Sure. Cool. All right. Well, Tim, thank you so much for coming on and chatting Fallout. This was incredible. It was a great time. This, obviously, you know that this means so much to the two of us, but I was glad that we got to express so many of our feelings about the series in a way that we've never otherwise done. So, stick.
My pleasure. We've both watched the show and literally have not spoken about it until this moment, which is really surprising.
Truly.
So I'm really glad we were able to spend the last 60 minutes and only 60 minutes talking about this show.
Yeah, Super definitely spent only an hour talking about this show. I can't wait to edit this down to an hour and 45 minutes. But nonetheless, I'm super appreciative of the time we got to spend. And genuinely, it is kind of shocking that we like shut up and didn't talk to each other until right now, which is cool. Because often we're like, anytime a good show breaks, we're like, hey, have you watched it? And we'll give each other like a week or two. And it's like, okay, you finished it. Speaking of, catch the fuck up on Shogun. What the fuck are you doing?
Sure. Everything ends for me in 2 weeks. And then I have nothing on my calendar. It's going to be great.
I understand. Andor, Shogun. We got to talk about Andor, man. Even just for us. But we've got Far Cry and other things to do. So anyway, core point being, grateful to have you on the show, filling in for PJ in this auspicious hour. Next week, PJ will return. We'll be talking about the First Law. Once again, we'll be returning to Before They Are Hanged, reading Allies Through Fear, and as such, we'll be continuing throughout the rest of the trilogy. We're taking no other side stops. We took 3 weeks off. He got married. He got his fucking honeymoon. This is the first time we've taken any serious time off ever in the history of the show over the last 4 years. So here we are. Now we're here.
I can't wait until your honeymoon when PJ and I are... Okay, anyway, cut. All right, we got to get out of here.
Not. When PJ and I are... What? Talking about Skyrim, the TV show?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm sure you would pull something off. I would not doubt that. But beyond that, if you haven't checked us out, make sure you check out the last couple of episodes. We put out a Chernobyl episode, which also included Tim, that is locked behind the Patreon gate. Otherwise, it is the first episode in the Chernobyl series. Truly, we've covered a number of book series. We've covered some TV shows. We've talked about a lot of things, but I am second most proud of all the shit that we've ever done on the Chernobyl series. We did such a good job talking about that collectively between the three of us that I hold that one close to the chest, and it is a Patreon exclusive as such. I'm glad people get to listen to the first episode, as they should, but definitely check that one out. Otherwise, we also put an episode out on PJ's favorite movie of all time, Big Trouble in Little China, of which you should definitely check out if you haven't already before. If you want to check out all the other bonus episodes that we put out, you can check it out on patreon.com/wordsandwhiskey. Again, thank you to our incredible back-end producers, Tim, Olson, for doing your great job on hosting the web services for not only us, but for Books and Baddies, HowlerPod, and Catacomb Party, putting you out there right now. But for everything you do for Atomic Pylon, of course, and to Andrew, of whom is mastering this and doing all the audio editing and does it for all of our shows. So greatly appreciate the two of you for being the back end of everything that we do. Social media sucks, but you can find us for the most part at Words Whiskey Pod on Instagram and X and Threads and Reddit, of where we are slowly becoming more active because Reddit exists as the sole decent proprietor of social media. I hate it. Figuring it out. It's fine. It's cool. It's good. So, cheers.